Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Stephen Simon, and welcome to CSharpCorner Public Speaking Virtual Conference. Thank you, everyone who has joined us today, as the next coming 3 to 3.5 hours is going to be really exciting. We have speakers from across the globe who bring all their experience speaking in different international conferences and share tips and tricks on how you can become a better public speaker. But before I get into and talk about public speaking virtual conference and speakers get into the room, let me talk about C Sharp Corner. So C Sharp Corner is a global community for developers and IT professionals. It started back in 1999 in December, which now ranks 2500 in the world. In 2019, we served over 24 million visitors, and top 5 countries for this was India, USA, UK, Germany, and Canada. We're one of the largest members contribution based communities for developers and IT professionals. You can always visit C Sharp Corner to find latest news and updates for softwares and development. If you ever visit csharpcorner.com, you will find not only articles, but you can read ebooks, PDFs, videos, you can go to forums, you can check code snippets, and a lot more. And C Sharp Corner is not just for C Sharp programming language. If you go to technologies section of C Sharp Corner, you will find out that there are a bunch of technologies and knowledge source that you can use to get learn. For example, you can learn Azure. At the same time, you can also learn AWS. If you are a Google interested guy, you can talk about this Java and Android, and you can also learn for Blazor and all those stuff. Now, C Sharp Corner is not just an online community. Across the globe, we have over 50 local user groups that are organized by the local community members. And as I said earlier, C Sharp Corner is a community. So all that I have said just now is going to be free forever as it was always. Now, talking about the host for today, we have Mahesh Chang and Naveen Sharma. I have known them for a very long time and they have been a kind of guru to me. Talking about Naveen Sharma, he would bring his 23 years of experience in technology and now act as a director of C Sharp Corner chapters. He's very active in the communities and now goes to different international conferences to talk about leadership, entrepreneurship, and programming, of course. The next person that we have is none other than Mahesh Chang. Mahesh Chang is the one who started C Sharp Corner back in 1999. He's a 14 times Microsoft MVP and a former Microsoft regional director. I have a privilege to meet him in person for a couple of times, but if you are going to interact him for the first time, use the comment section below to ask him any question or maybe any speaker. If you have any questions or any queries, you can go ahead and ask in the comment section below. Now, before I move ahead, let me call upon Naveen Sharma, who's actually the host for today. Hello, sir. Welcome to the studio.
Thanks, Simon. Hello, everyone. I am Naveen Sharma, and I carries now 24 years of experience in infrastructure, middleware, applications, overall architecture. So now I work as an enterprise architecture with a large IT company. And here at C Sharp Corner, it's my second home, as we normally call it. So Mahesh, myself, and along with other people like Simon, so we contribute towards C Sharp community programs. We design the programs and projects so that we can give more back to the community that we get in. We create the reward mechanism as well, like we have MVP, MVP Elite, social awards. So that is what we do our bit to keep the community alive, interesting, and to make fun presence all around. Now today's topic, while we are confined to our homes, it's very troubled times across the world. This disease is not going to go where any sooner. So why don't we use this time as more productive for our future growth and for more learning? And nothing harms when we learn about some tangible things like public speaking and presentation. So when we talk about public speaking, what comes to your mind? In back in the school programs, whenever teacher would ask you to stand up and say something or respond to some query to the class, then some of the people, some of the students will get a stage fear and they will not be able to speak even though they know the answer. Even in the college we get bit opened up. We have our school discussion groups, our friends, and then we join some musical groups, debates, etc., etc. So we get open up. But in the professional world, when we talk professionally, we present ourselves, our thought process, our organization to customer, to our audience, whatever the intended audience is. So we have to be adhere certain decorum, and that is why the public speaking and presentation skills that we learn today is going to be very, very helpful in that maintaining that decorum or learning how to speak effectively. So this could be the concept where people, most of you are all aware of, and you may be delivering the presentations about your project, about your solution to your customer, selling some solution to your customer, uh, getting business approvals, making business case presentations to your financial advisors, for your financial approvers. So there may be different case scenarios, but the core remains the same, that if you are able to present yourself effectively, then you are going to do wonders. So how to present yourself effectively? That is the way you communicate. And in your communication, when in professional world, in your communication, it gets included with your presentation, the way you present, be it on dais or be it on in a small conference room or in a virtual meeting like this. So everything matters a lot. So this is what we are going to learn today. And I think we have very, very renowned technocrats and great speakers lined up today to share their wisdom, share their experience with all of us, and that was going to help us in a very long run. So why don't we start pondering about what public speaking and different aspects are? So I'll take 2 more minutes. So what happens when when we are given the task to speak publicly or present some presentation in office? We should do the ground homework. So that is what we need to collect the all the content, what about our idea, what we are going to share, what type of audience would be there. There would be hecklers, there would be forced prisoners who will be just nodding at and doing nothing. There will be the main critical approvers of our idea. So how to manage the audience, how you stand up and convey your message. So that is a 4 P's of your presentation skills, that is pitch, pause, pace, projection. Then another 2 P's are posture and presentation. So we are going to learn all of this in this conference. It can be a bit lengthy, but it's a very, very worth time spending it. So I believe we have a fantastic speaker lineup today, and I'm just now giving back to Simon, and he will call upon our next co-host Mahesh. So Mahesh and I will tag you along with all the conference as we forward. And in the last section, we will have a panel where you can post your comments and queries. But don't just stop yourself. Keep posting your comments and queries, and we would be able to take it up as soon as we get the opportunity. Thanks, Simon. Over to you, Mahesh.
Thank you, Naveen. Thank you, Simon. Great initiative. Thank you for hosting all this. Um, so, a little background. My name is Mahesh Chang. I'm founder of CSharpCorner. CSharpCorner, as some of you already know, it's an online community, global community, and I'm here right now in Philadelphia. Uh, it's not far from New York, where all these, crazy things are happening. We definitely are affected by this new pandemic going on. And one of the reasons, we decided to do these virtual conferences while you are sitting home is learn something new, improve yourself, motivate yourself, and see how, while, we are all logged in, is there any way while we can still be learning, we can still be getting better. And that's what this whole learning is all about, growth is all about, is getting better than what we were yesterday, right? So if you ask my background, I grew up in a village. I never really had English speaking. I was not a good speaker. I'm still not a good speaker. So how do you become a good speaker? And that's really this conference is all about. This conference is all about, if you are a student, or if you are in a company working as a software developer, or if you are somebody who wants to go become a speaker at conferences, or you want to speak at meetups, how do you get a start? And then how you become really good speaker. So a little background on me. As I said, I was not a good speaker. I'm still not a good speaker. I think there's a lot of improvements needs to be made in my own speaking. But one thing I learned from is that the first step is very important step. And that step is, I remember I was in college. I was doing my master's degree in computer science. And in master's degree, all of us have to present that our last 6 months, whatever 4 months project we do, we have to present that. I go to the stage, and guess what? I'm frozen. I couldn't speak anything. So it's simply because there's so many things going on in your mind, so many things going on. You're thinking too much. Okay, am I going to speak right? Is people going to listen? Is my voice? Is my body? So many things goes on. So how do you overcome those first initial steps? How do you get on the stage, be confident? How do you present yourself? How do you wear clothes? How do you speak? And how do you connect and engage with the audience? All those things are going to be discussed in this conference. And I'm privileged and honored to have some of my good friends who have been speaking. As Naveen already mentioned, these are the guys who have been speaking for last 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. Go these guys go and speak in different continents. They travel all around. All they do is speak and educate people like us and you. So some of the topics when you think about public speaking is, it includes your, obviously, your presentation style, your body language, your what you're wearing, and also acting. Public speaking also involves some acting as well. You may not like some things, but then also how to engage with the audience. And then sometimes you want to make your speaking fun, right? We are all different people. Some people are very serious when they talk. Some people are making it interesting and fun. How do you engage with the audience? So all those combined, there's going to be great a conference today. You are going to learn a lot of things. And as Naveen and Simon already mentioned, have your questions ready. So first we have different sessions. We have 4 sessions going on. And after, in the end, we also have a panel. In the panel, all the speakers will be sitting and taking questions. So keep your questions ready for the end. And then now let me introduce our first and our next speaker, Magnus Martes. Welcome, Magnus. Magnus is a little introduction from my side. Magnus is a good friend. Magnus lives in Sweden. He's a CEO of LoftySoft, a software consulting firm focused around Microsoft Azure. Magnus is also a really good friend, obviously, and we enjoy talking and hanging out each other. He's also a Microsoft region director and frequent flyer to our India conferences and many other conferences. Welcome, Magnus. It's all you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Am I audible here?
You are audible. You're looking awesome as usual, as always.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, it's good to be here. It's very good to be here.
All right. This is all you.
It's all me. Oh my God.
It's all you.
So what I'm going to do first, actually, is I'm going to do this. And in case you heard that, and we're going to come back to what I just did in a minute. I'm very happy to get to open up this conference and talk about a couple of things. I'm actually going to talk about 2 things. This one on screen now would be the first one. It's mental preparation, body language, those kinds of things that we need to think about when we're going to present. And then I have another topic coming on a little bit later on here. So first up, maybe, who am I to talk about speaking? So in December in 2019, I posted my, oh my God, this was such a great year for traveling. I've been all over the place. Wow, this is wonderful, exciting. The only continent actually that I didn't get to speak on last year was South America. So I went to Australia, I went around everywhere. I went to India and many places. And then 2020 came along. And it's like nothing, which is so weird. I never spend so much time at home in a stretch that I am right now. But it's different. And sure, we're doing fine. It's going to be all right. It's just that I have spoken a lot over a decade and a half, and I have been engaging in training on how to actually speak better, how to perform on stage, how to stand, how to talk, and all these kinds of things. And I do that because public speaking is a passion of mine. Traveling is a passion of mine, and I get to combine them normally and travel and speak around the world. So let's get going. When I get on stage, I kind of look like this. And this is a, dress style that makes me comfortable, something that I think is okay for me, that works for me. I'm a geek. I am a tech person. I'm an engineer. I have a master's degree in computer science. I'm a nerd. I'm a programmer. But I like to dress up a little. And that's something that I have it's just my style. So my first kind of message here is that you need to think about what is a good style for you. This is a good style for me. Maybe it's not the good style for everyone, but I think that you should think about, there's a saying that you shouldn't dress for the job you have. You should dress for the job you want. And I think the same is true for being on stage. So if you are a person, let's say, who is kind of comfortable in the way that you dress, to put it politely, maybe you don't put much effort into it. Maybe you don't know, you don't care. I have a tip. So you should, while you're at home still, right, preparing, you should dress up. Like, what would you wear if you wanted to look nice? Wear that and take a look at yourself kind of in the mirror. And then maybe consider, when you're going on stage, to take it up one notch from there. Just a little, just maybe a little bit nicer. And if you can't do it, if you don't have the skills to go shopping, because this is a skill, if you don't know how to do this, you should ask for help. That's what I do. I ask for help, and I learned more about these things, and I got something that was, comfortable for me. If you're not, the tailored jacket kind of person, then you could, maybe a nice button shirt over a jumper or something would work for you. But just try to figure something out that might be good, might be good for you. So regardless, again, if you are a man or a woman, you should ask for help. If you're a woman, honestly, mostly you're probably fine already, because women know how to dress and men just don't know how to dress. And I'm generalizing, I know, but that's intentional, because a lot of people in the tech industry where I work, they put no effort into it. They don't put no thought into what they look like. But the point is, you should put some effort into going on stage, because if your audience perceives you as looking kind of smart, that will do a lot for your confidence while you're on stage, to project an image which people will look at you and say, huh, nice. That's a lot value for going on stage. So talking about mental preparation, now you're all dressed up, right? You're going to the conference, you're there, you're in the wings of the stage, you're about to go on, and you start to feel nervous. I used to be so nervous myself. The first like 5 minutes of a presentation, then I started getting into it. The presentation, you get warmed up and you get your blood pumping, you're on stage, and the nervousness kind of goes away. But before getting on stage, I used to be so nervous. So I think you need to practice. Now, honestly, I don't care. If I go on stage now for 5 people or for 500 people, it does not matter anymore. But it takes time to practice away those nerves in the beginning of a presentation. Now I feel empowered. But what you should do if you feel nervous before going on stage, you should find a happy place. Maybe donuts is your happy place. I don't know. But you should find something that makes you happy. Find something that makes you relaxed, something that you like to think about. Maybe happy isn't the appropriate emotion for your presentation, but hopefully it's that kind of a presentation. Some people go here, right, to kids. I have a friend, he thinks about his children to feel at ease and to get in a good mood and just feel right when he's going on stage. And I don't know, I have teenagers myself. Actually, thinking about my kids doesn't necessarily make me feel relaxed. but maybe that works for someone. My point is, find a place, find a way to exhale, find your center. And another good way of doing that is actually, and this may sound a little weird if you've never tried this, to do a power pose. Maybe you can't do it on stage, but go behind the stage where no one can see you and stand alone for a while and do a Superman pose. Really, honestly, do the whole stand up straight, flex your muscles a little, back straight, hands, fists to the side, power pose. That's actually a really, really good pose to make you feel good. And go to the restroom if there's no other place, like lock yourself in a stall. Do a power pose. It's really handy. There's actually just one more pose which works even better than that one, and it's this one. It's the Usain Bolt pose. It's proven that this puts you in such a good place, this pose, and you take a pose and you collect yourself, and then you go to the stage. You walk out on the stage, front and center stage. You stand there for a few seconds, silent. You look at the audience, big smile, and then you say, "Hello, everyone," or something similar. You take control by your presence. That takes practice. It's not super easy to do, but don't hide behind the podium like you're afraid of someone. Take the stage, stand on the stage, stand in the middle, in the front. It's you who are there. And keep calm, because I just said stay silent for a few seconds. And I'm sure maybe, some of you guys who are listening right now be like, what did you just say? Silent on stage for a few seconds? No, I can't do it. The problem is there that it feels like an eternity, 2, 5, 3, 5 seconds. It feels like 5 eternities to be silent on stage that long. But there's one it's not a simple trick, but if you learn that trick, it is one of the most powerful tricks of all. You should get on stage and learn how to use silence. It's so effectful, and it makes people just pop. All these nervous tics when you say a lot and all those things, that's you being nervous. That's you projecting that you are nervous. Someone who can be silent in front of people like that, who are looking at you, waiting for you to speak, projects power. And that's kind of where you want to be. So it's a bit painful. It's a lot uncomfortable at the beginning when you start working it with silence, but it's very powerful. You shouldn't be walking on stage and talking. You shouldn't be looking at the presentation. You should be giving your focus to the audience. You walk to the stage, you stand still, and then you talk. Don't pace, don't walk and talk, stand still. Don't look at the screen behind you saying like, okay, so over here, as you can see. No, don't do that. Look at the audience, talk to them there. That's where you are right now in my little camera. It takes practice, but keep calm and learn how to use silence. Also, don't look at your watch. On purpose here, I don't have a watch on. That's a thing that I do now. I put down my watch next to my computer. So when you're on stage, and if you look at your watch, you will not give out a feeling of control. You will send a signal that you're not in control, and people will pick up on that little signal. If you need to check your time while you're on stage, you put your watch next to your computer and you can check your time there. No one else can see that you're checking your time, only you. So this is what you look like when you check your time on stage. And you don't ask the audience, oh my God, how much time do I have left? Do I have time to talk about this? No, then you're not in control. Going back to the beep from before. So I don't use this technique all the time, but I wanted to do it today to show you guys. You put a timer next. This is a photo I took like not half an hour ago. You put a timer next to your screen, next to your computer, where you can see how much time you have left. I know exactly, and I'm not going to tell you, but I know how much time I have left. And I don't have to, oh my God, how much time do I have left? You don't have to check your watch. Don't do it. And as you can see here, I'm smiling. So you should remember to smile. It's difficult, okay? This is actually an area where I am practicing right now. It's not easy to make give a natural smile on cue. Like smile in front of the camera. Some people are so good at it. I'm not good at it. And I know a lot of people feel like it just looks weird when I smile. So you need to practice that. A smile builds confidence and it makes people relate to you. If you're standing there dead serious or your face is all dead throughout the presentation, you're monotone perhaps when you speak, that's not going to make people think you're human and make people relate to you. And this is an area, it is difficult. But I am working on it. I'm doing like I'm smiling all the time and trying to do it while I'm presenting. I know that I saw a couple of times myself, my own videos, what I look like, and I was like, I look so serious. You know, I really want people to relax and feel that they can relate to me and just feel that I am in control. And a really good way to do that is to sort of disarm the situation with a smile. It's again, it's a work in progress. I think I'm doing okay, but I know that I can do better. And you notice that I said that I saw my own videos. I don't know about you guys, but have you heard yourself talk? Have you seen yourself present? Have you heard a recording of your voice? I mean, in the beginning, it felt like I wanted to cut myself or something because it just felt so raw. I don't sound like that. You know, I don't sound like that in my head. But when you listen to a recording of your own voice coming at you, you sound so different, right? And most of us feel like it's wrong, right? It's just, no, I don't sound like this. But you need to practice this. You need to watch your own videos. I mean, do it religiously. Watch your own videos. It is hard to do, but after, I don't know, 5, 6 videos, 10, I don't know, it takes a bit of time, but you get used to it. You do. You're like, okay, fine. I now know I'm more comfortable, at least, with how I sound and what I look like on stage. The reason you should do it, not necessarily train yourself to listen to your own voice, but the reason you should really do it is to be able to pick up on things that you might do wrong on stage. Okay, so look at your own video and see what you are doing that maybe not is optimal. One thing that you could do is run your video at like 1.5 speed. Run it fast and without the sound. Of course, you sound like a Smurf. So run it on silent, but like 1.5 speed, and then you'll see what you may be doing constantly, which may be annoying after a time. So some people like to, maybe they're wagging like this, or they're walking, they're pacing back and forth or something, and those kinds of things become more apparent when you run your video at fast speed. So you can just look through your own video and see, what am I doing all the time? It seems like I'm touching my face all the time. We're not supposed to be touching our face at this time of in human history, but there's something maybe that you do, and try to get rid of it. Try to get conscious about the things that looks annoying and remove those, and start to get more comfortable with standing still on stage. That's the first part of my presentation. So I said we're going to switch tracks now. So let's do it. Let's switch tracks. I thought about doing this second part first and the first part second, but it didn't really make sense. I wanted us to get going in this conference in a positive way and start to feel a little bit of that anxiety about presentations and that sort of stuff. It'll make us more alert. And so let's go to a more academic topic, slide deck preparation.
Hey, that was great.
This is, I have practiced this a lot. I have worked at doing this well, and I have had a trainer. So I'm going to give some credits to my trainer right now. It's a gentleman named David Phillips. He has a company that does presentation coaching. He's really, really good at it. You can go and search on YouTube later. Stay here now. Don't go. This is actually some slides that I borrowed from him. And I have trained with this man. I am proud and happy to call him my friend now. I started engaging with him. Actually, I hired him as a coach to help me become a better presenter. Anyway, this slide is my own though. Going to PowerPoint, right? You say File, New, and then you open up the master slide, the style slide, and it looks like this. No, 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 this is bad. Don't ever use this. The master template in PowerPoint is broken. It is absolutely incorrect. No one should ever make slides based on this. If you do, you get slides that kind of look like this. Or they look like this. Yup. They may be looking like this, and now we have to start censoring who actually created this slide, because this is painful. So painful. You should never do this. And if you thought that it couldn't get worse, it could get this bad. Right? This is actually a US military operation in Afghanistan kind of outline. I don't know, somebody created this slide. I'm pretty impressed, but it's useless. If you're very, very unlucky, your slides might look like this. This is actually a presentation that was given to some of the MVPs. There's nothing secret here or anything, but this is just a slide with some numbers, some facts. This is what happens when you use a conference template. Conference templates are evil, okay? I don't subscribe to conferences forcing people to use a certain template. If you use a slide like this, if you create a slide like this and have that up, oh my God. The takeaway from this slide for the audience is that 90% of the information on that slide is gone within 30 seconds. There's no takeaway from that slide. It's broken, and I will show you how it's broken, okay? So let's go through some steps on how to create great slides. First of all, any slide should have one message. Here is a slide with two messages: facts about a classic car and exterior advantages about the classic car. There's an and there. There's two things on this slide. There should be only one message. Now the slide has one message. An issue we have as humans, a condition we have, it's good to know how humans work. A condition we have is the working memory. This is a problem. Our working memory is very limited. So if you persist with having lots of texts on the slide and you're speaking at the same time, the audience takeaway from that is zero. You cannot have lots of text and talk at the same time. That is broken. So a slide that looks like this, either you read to the audience what is on the slide, which would be stupid, or you take advantage of the fact that PowerPoint, or whatever presentation material you have, has a notes section. You remove the text from the slide and you put points, bullets, whatever you want to use. I don't subscribe to using bullets a lot, but some people do, that's fine. But do that. Put the facts on the screen, learn the text, learn what you're going to say. Have some respect for your audience. Learn the thing that you're going to say. Don't read this unless it's a quote. A quote could work. But generally speaking, don't read from the slides. No. But now that we have this slide in front of us, let's think about the size. Let's think about size of things on the screen. I want you to, excuse me, I want you to think just for a moment, relax your eyes, look at this message here on this slide. Relax your eyes, think nothing if you can. For me, it's not hard, it comes natural. Where are your eyes resting? Where are your eyes drawn to? I want to bet your eyes are drawn to the title of the slide. Look down at the individual items on this slide. Wait. Your eyes are drawn back up again to the title. Okay. So how about now? Where do your eyes rest now? On the items on the slide, not on the title. Look at the title, look at the content. What is the most important thing on the slide? The title or the content? As humans, we are trained to look at the largest thing in presence. Because the biggest thing which is near us might be the most dangerous thing, a large threat. Okay, so it's natural for us to look at the large thing in front of us. Always, and I'm not kidding, always make your title text smaller than the content text because the title is not the important thing on your slide. While on the topic, let's use contrast, okay? I like this feature in PowerPoint. If you have this in front of you, there's a lot of information. Where are we looking right now? Are we talking about the air intake or the reduced fuel? What is it that we are talking about? It's hard to follow along. PowerPoint has this wonderful feature called highlighting. So you can you can take advantage of this and make people look where you want them to look. Right now, we're talking about active steering. Now we're talking about aerodynamic. I can make your eyes land where I want them using the tools that are built in the PowerPoint. That might be a good idea. And if you have something like this, are we talking about snow, sunshine, rain, or hail? Turns out we're talking about sunshine. So really use this highlighting features to focus in, guide, help your audience. Where am I looking right now? Make it easy for them. I don't know if you noticed, but my slides are really dark. Human eyes. We all have them. We all use them. Right now you're looking at a very bright slide. Stare at that for a moment, I dare you. You might start feeling a little bit of water in the corner of your eyes now. It's like you're staring into all of this brightness goes straight into your eyes. It is more strenuous for you as a human being to look at this as compared to looking at that. This allows your eyes to relax more. There's less to look at. This is strenuous. This is relaxing. But it's important to use good contrast, and I'm not going to go deep into that here. Remember that there are maybe vision impaired people, colorblind people, so you might need to take that into account as well as you're creating your slides. But brightness, a lot of light coming from the screen into the eyes of your audience is more tiresome to watch and to look at. People will want to look away, and they might start looking at their phone instead of looking at your slides. So you don't want that. The number of objects that you have on a slide, how about that then? So here's a lot of objects on this slide. A lot of things are happening on this slide. There's a lot of information on this slide. Let's do a quick experiment at home. I'm going to show you a slide, and I want you to, in your head, count the dots as quick as you can. Just count the dots. All right, that should have taken about 2 seconds for you, about 2 seconds. So let's try again. Let's try with this number of dots. Faster, right? Of course, there are fewer dots, but it's easier to count these dots. but let's take it down even further. That should have been almost immediate. There's a big difference between this and that. And turns out there is a scientifically proven inflection point of 6 objects. You should never have too many objects on your slide. 6 is the critical number. On this slide, there's actually 16 things. This is your brain going, oh, and this is your brain going, there's only 4 things. Good. Your brain goes, your brain goes, yes. Okay. So let's do it. Let's fix a slide. Let's start to wind down this presentation and fix a slide together based on the things that I just talked about. Let's go back to this slide. Remember this one? Okay. So let's fix the slide. What's the biggest problem on this slide right now? I'm going to show you. Where does your eyes rest? There, with the people. There's people on this slide, and they have nothing to do with the content. Sometimes you can be effective and use a picture of a face or something, but you probably don't have text at the same time. Right now, you want people to look at the facts on this slide, and people are looking or unconsciously have to draw their eyes down to these little people in the corner. That's what happens. So lose them. Now where do your eyes go? Now that we remove those people, where do your eyes go now? To this. The title again. Remember, the title is not the most important thing, so make it small, right? The slide is still the same. The message is still the same. Actually, I added a year there, but make the title sort of concise. What is it about? But move it away and make it smaller because it's not the most important thing. So the next thing, bullets. And also you have a lot of real estate here on the slide that you're not using. There's a lot of open space. So how about making the font larger on the things that is important? Maybe consider losing the bullet points. Some people like them. I don't. Now you're getting somewhere. Now the facts are popping in front of your eyes. So the next thing here is the number of items on the slide. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Wait, 8? We said 6, right? So lose the logo down here and lose the logo up there. I am not fond of logo slides. The whole marketing idea that you need to have your brand on every slide, that's bullshit. I'm sorry, it's bullshit. You know where you are. You know who you're listening to. That should be apparent from the presenter. That should be apparent from the context. You don't need, I'm sorry, you do not need the logo on every slide. No, you don't do that. If you need to do handouts, if you need to give some printed material away, if that's a thing you're doing, put your logo on those. It's not the same as the slides that you're presenting though, okay? So the next thing is on this slide, and one more thing to sort of correct here is the brightness, right? It's very bright. It's just a lot of white. So let's try with a different contrast. I don't know if this got better, but I think it did. So let's compare these two side by side. I'm here to tell you seriously, though, that the slide on the right has a chance of letting people focus on the content and letting them making the slide be memorable. The slide on the left is useless. It's pointless. It just serves as a memory map for the speaker who presents it, but the slide itself is not for audience. The slide might be, the facts themselves might be for the presenter, but no one's going to remember the slide on the left. The slide on the right helps the audience focus on the message. Takeaway, please, don't ever use this again. Don't ever use them again. This is bad. This is wrong. You shouldn't be doing that. And I'm going to call out my friend David Phillips again one more time. How to Avoid Death by PowerPoint is a book that he has written, and you should take a look at that. It's a handy book. It goes through the things that I just talked about. And now my time is up. Send me a nice tweet, though. I do like tweets. And that's all I had to say for today. So thank you for your attention. Thank you for listening.
Wow, that's a great, very, very great, good points. Naveen, go ahead.
Yeah. So thanks, Magnus, for telling us again, because I am second time I'm attending this session with you. So telling that Microsoft PowerPoint doesn't work at all. And yes, like a solution designer myself, I know how to tweak my PowerPoints to deliver the right message to the right stakeholders.
Yeah.
And before speaking anything out of it, just calming my body, taking out the pressure, and relaxing myself. Yes, and your power pose. That is what I do more often.
Good,
So
good.
thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. And I think,
Well, it does help again, right? The whole power pose. It really
yeah,
helps. It's crazy,
yeah,
but it does.
yeah. I do some other exercises like so that it takes the stress out. It gives the
Yeah,
voice, vocal cords become
yeah.
strong.
I
And
didn't talk about that. Yeah.
there are some other tips, like you should not eat any dairy product while you have an important speaking session going on. So no milk, no tea, no coffee. So I later on you can
Interesting.
do that. Yeah.
Whatever works for you, man. And I
Yeah.
agree. A lot of people do voice like warm up exercises.
Exactly. So
People,
was the one,
yeah,
and
people who go on stage to sing and perform, they
yeah,
do voice warm up exercises.
yeah,
If you go on a stage to present, why shouldn't you do the same?
exactly.
Yeah.
You should. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Only
right.
problem is if I don't drink tea, I'll be sleeping on the stage. So I have
Yeah.
to.
That could be a
So
problem.
I was put an mistake. So exceptions are there. So here only. Anyway, so that was a very wonderful session. So Mahesh, next now in this session we learned about body posture. How to speak confidently, coming on the stage with a bang. And so there are different options, and depending on the type of event you have. So obviously, our rock star David, when he comes on the stage, he cannot be calm and silent.
Right.
so so it depends, but I believe most of the times, whatever Magnus has shared, they work very well, and I have learned a lot from Magnus as well. So I believe it's second or third time he has delivered this session on presentation. It's wonderful. Now, can we switch back to the main agenda? And our next speaker, Monica Rathbun, she's a great, SQL expert. Lots of accolades and achievements to her kitty. And for when it comes to databases, so maybe in Virginia they call there's a Monica.
Hey everybody,
Yeah,
how are you? I gotta
yeah.
tell you, following Magnus is gonna be extremely hard. I'm looking at my slide deck and looking at the do's and don'ts that he just covered, and you guys just need to ignore everything that he just said. Pretend it doesn't exist
Yes,
in my slide deck.
yes, yes.
Well,
I'm sorry.
I'm
not the
sitting
first
here
time that
exactly.
happened.
Same thing I'm thinking here. Like, okay, I walk all the time. Okay, I'm looking at this and I'm doing all this and I'm shaking my head and I need to go and fix myself.
I know I have notes here of everything that I have wrong and what I need to fix if I ever speak right after Magnus. So
We'll wait for the second session in the series then.
yes. Yes, next time I definitely need to rearrange that schedule so I can go first and then he can use my slide deck as an example.
Oh,
No, it was a really great presentation, Magnus. Really great notes.
All right, thank you, Magnus. Appreciate it. Was awesome. And Monica, it's all you. Take it from here. Thank you.
All
Yeah,
right, everybody. I am so glad to be here. I'm going to talk a little bit about audience engagement. Unlike the other speakers today, I'm a fairly new speaker. I've only been speaking for about 5 years now, and I'm a very nervous speaker. So doing this today still got me nervous, just like any other presentation. But, you have to actually control that nervousness, figure out how to engage your audience. We're going to talk about some of those things, and we'll talk about how I can break the ice straight off the bat and get that audience engagement before things even start. So let's go ahead and get started and show my slide deck if we can. All right, there you go. So I like to actually start out with this on my slide. I can let everybody know why they walked into the room that they're in, and make sure they're in the right place. So I do have an introduction slide like this. And if I can get my screen to go forward. There we go. All right, so I like to go ahead and talk a little bit about me. Let them know who I am. It kind of sets the tone. We'll talk about setting the tone here shortly, but I give them a little bit of view onto what my credentials are. So when they walk into a room, they can actually see, hey, yeah, this is the right person. She knows what she's talking about. You can see that I'm a Microsoft MVP. I'm a VMware expert. I set the tone that I am an expert in what I'm about to talk about. So that's why I have this slide going up here. You can find me at SQL Espresso. It gives them a follow-up method right off the bat. And if they ever actually download my slide deck, it gives them all the information they need to reach me. I also use an agenda. Many people don't use an agenda, but I think it's important as I'm going through this to set an expectation, to let them know what they're about to see. And it actually gives them an opportunity to walk out of the room if they want to see another session. I tend to actually talk at conferences that have several ongoing sessions at the same time. I like to let my audience know that my topic is for them and I want them to learn something. If it's not exactly what they came in for based on my agenda slide, it's okay to go and move to another session. So I absolutely make my agenda available to everybody. And this is a give or take. Magnus may agree, not agree on whether to have an agenda slide. I'm sure I'll find out later. But this is what I like to do. So today we're going to talk about engagement before it starts. And like Magnus said, you have to project yourself as an expert. So we're going to talk about how to make sure you project yourself as an expert and what kind of things you can do to help them believe you are the expert. Then we're going to talk about relating. It's very, very important to be relatable to your audience. You want to make sure you're not stone, a stone figure lecturing in front of them that they can't talk to or intimidated by. You want to just be this casual person that, hey, I'm just having a conversation with them. So that's what we're going to talk about. And then we're going to talk about virtual. Engaging with your audience in a virtual manner is very difficult. Obviously, Magnus before me did a fantastic job, but not everybody is as seasoned as him to do a virtual conference. And right now, with the way the world is, a lot of conferences are going virtual. And it's going to be a big skill set that all of us presenters are going to have to manage and figure out how to do it just to move forward in our speaking time for the next year. And then we're always going to close with a summary. I want to give my audience something to take back and an actionable item. I'm engaging with them to have them do something else after they leave the room and hear me speak. So we'll talk about that as well. Again, like I said, everything happens before your presentation even starts. How many times have you walked into a room, you see the speaker looking at their watch, you see them standing there talking to themselves, kind of going over their presentation, they're pacing back and forth, they are actually nervous, and you can see they're nervous, so there might be tense. You can actually see them just standing there. The room is silent when you walk in, and the speaker is just standing there like this. That is not engaging. Setting the tone as soon as the person walks into your room matters. You don't want to stand there and be quiet. Now, Magnus said take a pause and be quiet before you start to speak. Command your audience. Fantastic. But during the 10 or 15 minutes before you're actually going to do your session, when everybody is filing into the room and you're not on a big stage, you're in a classroom, you're in a conference of some sort where you're in a ballroom and not on a stage, it's important not just to stand there quietly, waiting for everybody to sit into the room, and then you're saying, okay, let's talk. Meanwhile, everybody is coming in, they're thinking they need to stay quiet, and they're thinking that they can't say anything because they're going to interrupt you or whatever. That's not what you want to do. You don't want to be on your phone either, doing those last minute texts or checking your messages or checking Twitter. It means you're not engaged and ready and prepared to start. And don't stare at your watch. Magnus said that already. He takes his watch off. I don't wear a watch usually when I speak. I actually use a timer just like his. Doing things like that is awkward. It's very, very awkward to walk into a room and sit there where the speaker is quiet, just standing and waiting. They're sitting there, standing with waiting with their arms crossed. Maybe they're moving back and forth. It's just quiet. What do you need to do with your audience as soon as you walk into the room? You connect. You get common ground. You make connections as they walk in. I love to start engaging my audience as they walk in. As they're walking in the door, I say, hey, how are you today? Or I'm starting to talk about my Twitter handle is Sequel Espresso. Many people want to know where Sequel Espresso came from. So maybe I'm talking about the quad shots of espresso that I took 4 times a day, not even knowing I was doing 4 quad shots a day because I didn't know how to use the machine correctly. That always gets laughs. There's something that you can talk about that engages everybody, whether it's asking them if they enjoyed the sessions that they did prior to coming into your room, or it's talking about how did they find out about the conference. If it's talking about the coffee hasn't kicked into your system yet because you're the first session in the morning and you're dragging and you're laughing about why you're so tired or something, you're connecting and making friends with those people in the audience. Even if it's just 1 or 2 people, you're making that connection. And people who walk into your room in that kind of environment automatically feel comfortable. We're about to have a conversation. Oh man, this person is going to be great. You're setting an expectation and you're actually becoming familiar to them, maybe making friends even before you start. When you do that, you get that immediate connection. They're paying attention to you. They are engaged and they are ready to go. It's not something where you're going to have people falling asleep in your room because they're already engaged with you, became your friends, and they are ready to have that conversation. So connect even before you start your presentation. And like Magnus said, you've got to be the expert. How do you do that? You make them believe. I don't care if you don't know everything. I don't care if you feel like you're talking about a topic that you're just not quite sure you're about to say the right thing. I don't care if it's the wrong thing, but you've got it in your slide deck. You are the expert, and because you said that's what it is, that's what it is. And how do you do that? You have the confidence when you speak. Notice when I'm speaking, I just all of a sudden stood right up. Sat right up, obviously, because I'm at my desk. But I'm standing here in a command, confident that I'm about to tell you everything on this slide is correct because I said so. Right? Now, if I was sitting here completely slunched over, which you probably can't even see me right now, but completely slouched over, or my arms crossed, or my shoulders were saggy, then it looks like, okay, maybe this person doesn't know what they're talking about. So confidence, believe in yourself that you can do it. The confidence will shine through and you automatically become the expert. Tone. Again, if I'm talking in a complete monotone, or I'm really, really quiet, or I have a stutter to my voice to where, you can tell I'm not quite confident in what I'm about to tell you, it actually shows to your audience. Tone makes the whole thing different for how they see you. Speaking with confidence, a stern voice, you believe in yourself, makes a world of difference. When you have that nervous tics that come through, the ums and really and and yeah, and all of those things, it gives the audience a second to pause. And they start to wonder, are they second guessing themselves? Did they forget something? Did they say something wrong? Is there something that I'm missing or they skipped that they're realizing they did? Sometimes people have the nervous tick of ums just normally, and that's okay. There are ways you can practice, and we'll talk about that, to get rid of those things. That comes completely with becoming a seasoned speaker. Everybody starts out with those. I know some speakers that are very seasoned that have been doing it for 10 years and still have those nervous tics. Just remember, if you're going to have the nervous tics, say them with confidence, right? You still become the expert and just do your best. Try to see what you can do to get rid of it. Did you catch that? I just said, that is my nervous tic and I just caught it. So it happens to all of us. And watch your posture. Like I said, I'm standing here in my desk chair, trying to do my best to still watch my posture. Standing up there in the middle of the room with a slouching posture, again, makes a huge difference. Do your best. If you're in the middle of your speaking engagement, correct yourself if you find yourself doing it. When you do that, sometimes re-straightening your posture grabs the attention of your audience. It can make a difference. So just watch yourself. Make them believe. You don't have to be right. You don't have to be perfect about what you're saying. Although with practice and with research, you can make sure you're saying the right things, but make them believe, regardless what it is. Practice, 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 practice. For a speaker, whether you're new, whether you're seasoned, a brand new deck, a brand new topic, practice. There's so many things that you need to work on before you go and speak to an audience, or after you've gone and spoken to the audience, come back and make corrections for. Try to record yourself when you do your session, when you're practicing at home. Give your session to family members. Sometimes I've actually given my session to my pets. If a cat is sitting at my desk or something, I might just go and pretend they are an audience member. Do your best. Everybody has coworkers and friends. Maybe you give your session at your office and ask a couple of people, hey, at lunch, can we sit into the conference room? Let me practice my deck with you, and maybe get some feedback. Preparing and practicing is all you can do. I've given sessions, the same sessions over and over again, and it continues to improve. The first time I give a session, it's never perfect. It's never perfect. I always either say something wrong or I miss something every single time. So practice in a mirror. If you can record yourself and listen to it. I hate listening to myself recorded. However, I will struggle through that just so I can see. As you can tell, when I talk fast. I talk really fast. And no matter what I do to pace myself, it always speeds up. That is the biggest feedback that I get all the time. You talk so fast, I can't keep up. It happens. It will always happen, but I continue to try to slow it down. Just now, I slowed myself down, just the tempo, just a little bit, but I try to do that. Engaging with the audience, trying to slow your speed down, watching the audience to see, hey, are they connecting? Are they following me, or am I going too fast? And then slow down. All of that is a skill that gets mastered with practice. Looks like my slide deck doesn't want to prepare. Okay, involve your audience, right? You don't want anybody sleeping in your audience. You want them to actually feel like they are part of the conversation. Now, this is what I do. Doesn't work for everyone, but it's what I do. This slide is present in every single one of my slide decks. Why do I do that? This is usually the second slide that I put up, and I set expectations of engagement with my audience. Now, what do? I tell my audience, hey, this is about you. It's not about me. So let's have a conversation. Let's learn from each other. I don't mind if my audience raises their hands to ask me a question during a slide. I don't mind if they want to share something that can actually help other people in my audience. I want them to stay engaged, to interrupt me. Now, I do caution, like today, we only have 30 minutes. Sometimes I have 50 minutes, sometimes I have an hour, sometimes I have an 8-hour session. I want to make sure me as a speaker controls the flow of those questions. I control my time. A lot of times you can get somebody that actually takes advantage of these presentation rules and likes to have a question with every single slide. And they tend to kind of take over the session. You actually have to master the skill as a speaker on how to actually gauge your time and how to be able to allow for the conversation and the engagement from your audience. I want to make sure, like I said, I want to keep them awake. I want them to know that this presentation is for them. They need to get out of the presentation as much as possible. And how do they do that? Engagement, asking me questions, making sure that they understand my content. So this slide, again, is set in the very beginning. It sets the expectation that I'm not here just to lecture you. I'm here to learn with you, to teach you, to show you what you can get from SQL Server, as an example, to help your environment. So this is what I do. It may not work for everybody, but I set the tone right away that engagement is important to me. Now, I need to get them involved. If they are not involved and they're all just sitting there quiet, maybe I have somebody who fell asleep or somebody who's nodding off because of the time of the day or time zone differences, things like that, I take control of the engagement and I ask the questions. So I may say, how many of you guys have ever run into this issue? Show me your hands, and have them raise their hands. And then I say, oh, and I might point to somebody or gesture to somebody and say, oh, really? Why don't you tell me about that? Was that really difficult? How did you overcome that? And I turn the command over to the audience. I pull the engagement out of them and I urge the interactions. Maybe I say, hey, I got this error. And when I got this error, as I'm talking about whatever topic I'm doing, I really struggled to get through this. And I ended up solving the issue by 1, 2, and 3. Did anybody else do it quicker than I was? Can you actually share that with the audience? Or I might look for head gestures. I might say, hey, who has done this or that? And you'll see the audience shake their head. Or you'll have some kind of action from your audience that tells you, yes, they're engaged. Maybe we have an activity we have to do. And I might ask somebody to stand up and demonstrate something. Or I'll do something that says, hey, audience, are you with me? Are you still there? Like right now, hey, maybe you have a comment and you wanted to put it inside the chat. We'll be going back to those later and we'll follow up on some of those questions. There are ways to do it and encourage active listening with your audience if they are not engaged with you automatically. Be relatable. Again, this is something we talked about with tone, as well as your body language. Being relatable means that they're not looking at you to lecture. You're not a professor in which they're sitting in a class, standing there taking notes, and they know they need to be quiet, and it's really, really monotone, and it happened to go back to be the most boring class you've ever been to, and you dread going to hear that professor talk because they have this lecture tone, and they're just like speaking at a blank wall. That's no fun. Right? When you're talking with your hands, when you're using inflection in your voice, when you're just having a conversation like you would with a friend, that's the way to do a good presentation. If you watched Magnus earlier, he talked with his hands. He talked to his camera just like this, and he was actually engaged. Regardless, he could see who was on the other side. His voice had the energy, and his voice was saying, yes, I see you. I'm not here to just talk at my camera just because I was told to do that. What fun is that? That is not fun. It's not engaging. Watch your cadence too. Again, that goes with tones. What's cadence? Cadence is the music of your words. It's the tempo of your words. If I'm talking in the same cadence and it might be really, really fast, really, really slow, or it's just not melody-like, then you're not going to want to listen to it. If you're actually using inflection, if we're talking in different fast, slow, different kinds of tempos, that's the word I'm looking for, different kinds of tempos, it makes your talk more interesting. It's not bland. It's not something you're going to fall asleep to. It really makes it so you're not boring. What to take from this? Don't be boring. Do everything opposite that you've actually encountered when you've gone to that really boring lecture from a professor. Do your best to avoid that. Now, what if it's virtual? If it's virtual, how can you do this? I'm trying my best now to talk to my camera and engage, right? So first, don't look down at your slides, which to me are on my desk. Make sure you're engaged and you're looking at your camera. Your audience may not be in front of you, but they are on the other side of that camera. Or if you're actually just recording your session, maybe you put your kids in the room while you record and really hope that they're silent and don't make any noise so you can actually have some eye contact with somebody. Or maybe you put a mirror. Some people put a mirror in the room so when they're talking, they can actually see themselves and pretend they're talking to somebody else. But when I talked about earlier, I talked about engaging your audience and audience participation. Doing that online can still happen. Always have a moderator. We have a moderator in here today. He can actually go and look at questions and then come back to me. I could pause at any point in time and say, hey, do we have any questions? And let him interject and allow those questions to come through. Always have a moderator. Don't do it without it. And then work with your moderator beforehand. Let them know, hey, I'm actually going to ask you midway if the audience has questions. Can you stop us and see if we can address some of those questions before we move forward? There's things you can do to make sure you're still getting that audience and great engagement. And CSharpCorner does a great job with taking care of that in sessions like this that they do. It's one of the best things about their training sessions that I love. Pause for questions. I haven't done that so far, but I'm going to leave some time after this for some questions, and I will have them kicked back over to make sure we get that audience participation that I've been talking about. You can always pause and check for questions, even though you're virtual. I like to do that too if I'm not virtual, especially if you're a speaker and you realize you're going too fast through your slide deck. Take a pause. Use some of your extra time to engage your audience. Take a couple minutes to see who has any questions on what I just covered so far. It slows your pace. It allows engagement with the audience, and you can still do that in a virtual environment. Like I said, speak as though they're in the room, right? Make sure they can see you. They can pretend that they are in a room with you because you've engaged them in that camera. You've actually found a way to make that connection. It's a hard thing to do. It's something, again, within this next year of all these virtual conferences we're going to do. Sooner or later, we're going to master it, but a lot of us are going to fumble through it because it's a new environment for us. So speak as though they're in the room as best you can. It's difficult, as you can tell in these things today. It is a skill that a seasoned speaker will still have to work on as well. Lastly, turn on your camera. Turn on your camera. If you are actually using a system like we are right now called StreamYard, you're able to do what we're doing right now. We have the camera and the slide deck. It is very, very difficult to look at somebody's slide deck only on your screen in a virtual environment and not get distracted by your email, by your Twitter account, by your kids that are in the other room, by whatever thing that you have going on, work, or whatever it is that is commanding the additional screens in your environment. It's hard to keep the engagement. I'm sure many of you right now, besides streaming this live, have something else that's distracted you during these engagements. Putting on a camera reminds you that there's somebody else on the other side of that screen talking to you. It lets them know, hey, there's a person here. Usually when there's a person and they are looking at me through their camera, they get the engagement. They actually say, okay, there's a person, I need to pay attention. I need to respect their time. They're talking to me. That's how it works. For many people that just do webinars that have no camera involved, it is extremely, extremely easy to disengage or to not be able to be an active participant and ask questions or take notes or whatever it is because you've just gotten distracted by whoever's tweeting their favorite dog on Twitter or whatever cute animal that was just tweeted. And then you've lost the whole context of whatever that slide or whatever the thing the person was teaching you. Turn on the camera as a speaker. It engages your audience. It lets them know that you're real. It lets them know that you're there speaking to you. So definitely do that if you get the opportunity. That's all I have at this time, but I'm actually going to kick it over, and I did this on purpose. One, I leave my slide with an action item. You can see it says, get them involved from the start. I want all of you new speakers to make sure you engage your audience before your speaking starts, before your session starts. Engage them as they walk through the door. The number one thing I want you to take away from my deck is an action item to start talking to the people as they walk through the door. Before you get started, it relaxes your nerves. It gets the right tone. It allows you to engage your audience right off the bat. Leaving you with the rest of my contact information, I always let my users know, or my users, see, I'm a technical person, let my audience know they can reach me. Again, I'm relating to them. I'm telling them, hey, reach out after the fact, tweet me, hit me up on my blog, ask me questions. When you leave this room, still engage me. I want to know about you. I want you to learn more from me. This is how you reach me. So I always end with that. Okay, I'm going to switch it back over. I'd love to find out if any of you guys have any questions. Simon, if we could switch. And if there's any questions from the audience, I would love to be able to answer some.
Well, that was great, Monica. I learned myself a lot from this, how to connect. I'm not going to be standing like this, okay? I'm not on the phone either. That was great. Definitely, we can take a couple of questions. We have 2 more minutes. Simon, if you have any questions, just go ahead and speak. And hey, I think a couple of things. Go ahead. I mean, you go ahead.
Yeah, I do have a question. So, Monica, whenever we present, even in office, there are people who try to derail your whole session with their own thoughts and own evil intentions. So, generally, in public speaking scenario, they are called hecklers. So, what is your strategy? How do you handle them?
So we all get hecklers. Sometimes I have friends that sit in my session and heckle me just to, spice things up. It happens. We've all had that happen. Hecklers, that is a learned skill on how to control your audience. When I open up my sessions and allow people to interrupt and ask questions, I'm always on guard for those who want to hijack my session, right? They want to make the session about them, or they want to correct me, or they want to ask questions to stump the speaker. That happens, right? So I tend to actually say, I hear your question. That's a really great question. Let me follow back up on that. And I pull the engagement away from them. If it's somebody that's asked several questions and I find out, okay, I can tell this person is either trying to stump the speaker or trying to commandeer my session, I take control back and just say, hey, great feedback. Let me move on to this. And I don't give them the engagement of being able to heckle. Or sometimes they might say something and I might just laugh it off. Oh, that's great. Yep, good point. And I move on. That's a skill set that you have to develop over time.
I recall how I treat, because I do have a mentor who taught me the facilitation skills. So once I had the person who was much experienced, but he was not at all related to the technology I was talking about. So he wanted to get acknowledged in the audience that he's so much experienced for XYZ thing. So I just recalled what my mentor said. Why don't you use him as a tool? So so I just called him on the stage to do some whiteboarding job. And he was so happy because he got recognized. He was on the stage. So
I don't think I want to do that. No, it's gonna mess up my flow. Okay.
I've used that technique before to where I might be covering a topic and maybe somebody asked a question that I might not know the answer. I might call in that person. Hey, Joe, you have experience in this. Can you answer this question for them? Makes them feel important. It brings them into the conversation.
Yes.
It lets the audience know, too, that there's some other expert in the audience that they may be able to get information from or make contact with after. I'm okay with that.
What happens is, whenever you are presenting a business case and that only CFO can approve it, although there are 3-4 other dignitaries who just want to make their presence felt. So they will ask, okay, then will this application work on XYZ platform? You said, but we are not talking about this. So ideally in mind, you think that we are not talking why he's asking this question.
Right.
So he just wanted to make his presence felt, that he cross-questioned the overall business proposal.
Yeah.
So I would just get reflective. Okay, so what do you think, that is it a good strategy? So I will just make the whole question out of our proposal and throw it to him, that how do you take your question? So then he will start supporting. Oh, yes, I have read about it. This is a good platform, blah, blah, blah. So there are ways, and I believe it's very fantastic session you just delivered. And I got some, I have taken notes, some of your key points you have delivered. So gonna practice it. And that is why you said practice. So more we practice, I believe, at least in our core expertise area, we become more seasoned speaker in that technology domain. So because
Awesome.
we are all techies.
Great,
Yeah,
Monica. Thank you. That was awesome. We learned a lot. Let's move to next. Thank you so much. There'll be more questions in the panel. So we just learned from Monica about how to engage with the audience. Well, great session. Simon, can you load the next intro for a speaker? And here we are.
Ooh, that must be
Joe
me.
now. Yeah, that's definitely you. Joe, looks like we don't have a speaker slide. That's fine. Welcome, Joe, to our
I do have my speaker slide.
conference. Then awesome. You are all good to go. And take us there.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Guadagno. As you notice, one of the things Magnus talked about was being present, being ready, being prepared. He talked about dressing. This is my first real day dressing. So I put on full speaker gear, my polo shirt, my Quicken Loans outfit. I even got pants and shoes. You can't see it, but I got pants and shoes on, which is very unusual nowadays with all of our current scenario. So I'm here to talk about preparation and feedback. Hopefully I'll be able to cover a lot more with everything that Magnus and Monica talked about, because, in all honesty, they stole some of my thunder. But I'm super passionate about this topic, and I have a lot to cover. So let's start off with a little bit about me. My name's Joe Guadagno. You can follow me on multiple social media platforms at jguadagno on Twitter, Facebook, josephguadagno.net, LinkedIn, Joseph Guadagno. Or if you want to learn more about me or some of my presentations, check out jjg.me/aboutme. So preparation. You've heard Magnus mention it. You've heard Monica talk about it. There's a lot to going into preparation. It's kind of funny that I got asked to do this talk because I am super when it comes to preparing for talks. I have a certain regime of things I do. I go through a certain kind of rehearsal just amongst myself when I have a talk, whether I'm creating a new one or working on an existing one. And we're going to kind of walk through some of that. I had one of my coworkers earlier this week asked me about public speaking because he knows I speak a lot at conferences, and he was trying to get into it. So I sat there and talked during our one-on-one for almost a half hour. And at the end of the one-on-one, I told him, it's like, this is perfect. I just literally gave the talk I'm giving in 4 days to you without any memory or any preparation for it. So as Monica said earlier, granted he wasn't my pet, but he was my team member in the unfortunate trial run for this. So talking about preparation, it's this tweet came out, I think it was last Friday, if I remember correctly. And then me being the Weisenheimer, I put in, I guess I should start preparing. In all honesty, for a lot of my talks, I prepare way out there, assuming it's not an impromptu. Like if I'm at a conference and someone wants to learn about technology, why I might just go and start talking about it right there. But for something like this or another conference talk, I actually start looking out. Could be weeks, could be months out ahead of time to start preparing. So I'm going to walk you through a lot of those tips and a lot of the things I do. The first start is content. And if you notice, I only have one focus point on the majority of my slides. So I sat through that presentation that Magnus gave about, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago when we were at the CSharpCorner conference in India. He gave an impromptu talk about that, which was awesome. But as Dave McCarter mentioned, he had to go rewrite his scripts. I had to go rewrite all my slides, and I only had like 2 hours left to go and do it. So they all went from this bright white to this darker, more eye-pleasing. This one's mostly white because there's simple images in it. But content is the key. Sit down and think about it. Think about it like you're doing a book report, or you're planning out your next software project, or you're planning out a wedding or some other festivity. Think about what you want to cover. Think about what you want to do. Put that together in a series of notes, whether they be mental, whether you use OneDrive, or whether you use something like old-fashioned pen and paper. So this is a screenshot of my notepad that I took when I was actually preparing for this content, I started outlining some of the stuff I wanted to do. You'll see that there's the preparation steps. I started doing the basic outline where we talked about content, which you saw a slide that said content. Talked about the outline, where we're right now talking about outline. We'll eventually get into the plan, the scripting, the rehearsal, time, commitment, etc. But I write down everything what I want to cover, and then I kind of rearrange it. Sometimes I do it in paper, sometimes I do it in OneNote. It usually starts off quickly in paper, and I'm just jotting things down, and then I'll translate it into OneNote or something like Notepad, something like that, where I can just copy, paste, move stuff around. But the important is to have a plan and an outline that takes you from point A, point B. One of the things I've learned in the 3 days I've been speaking in public is that you want to tell a story. Start off with the beginning, build up, get some content in there, get audience engagement, which is kind of hard to do when you're just doing a remote presentation like this, but get the engagement, get them bought into the story where they're interested, they want to learn. Then complete the story with an end, which is usually action items or something very similar to what you've seen in the last 2 presentations so far. So building out your outline takes you off to the next step, which is the rehearsal itself. So with me, I have a script that I follow. This is a sample script from one of my presentations. All of my content has that outline that I gave you on the previous slide. This one. Oh, let's go back. This slide. It has the basics outline. Then we go through and we script it out. So this script kind of covers everything I'm talking about. I start off with the title of the talk, presentation setup. These are things I need to do for this particular talk, building native mobile applications with React and JavaScript. I had a presentation set up. I needed to go back and make sure I have Node.js set up. I have this app called JSON Server set up. If I'm on a Windows, because I go back and forth between Windows and Macintosh computers, I use Chocolatey and Yarn. These are steps I do. So I have a presentation script which kind of tells the story. It goes back to telling the story and being prepared. I also, if you look at my website, I have a lot of presentations I do. I think on the website there are currently 20 some odd active talks that I do, ranging in technologies and soft skills talk. It's hard to give a really good, effective presentation and be that expert that Monica talked about if you're doing so many. So I script that, because even if I'm doing the same talk over and over again, there's times in between that I'm not doing anything. Like I haven't given a presentation in the current environment for probably 3 or 4 months. So even if I gave this talk 4 months ago before we started to, not be able to fly, not be able to meet in public, I would still go through this script day before, 2 days before, to make sure that I have everything that I want to bring out to the audience. And this kind of gives me a walking script. I don't memorize it, because a lot of what we do, you talk about and you do as you go along, but it covers a lot of the basics. And I usually have this around just in case, especially if I'm doing code heavy talks. I'll be able to see the actual code and it will trigger something in my head to say, okay, Joe, you need to go and do this. Part of those scripts come up with a timing. So timing and rehearsals are very important when you're going through. Magnus talked about how he started his timer. I have mine right here, which kind of shows me what time it is and how much time I have left. Monica talked about hers. We all have timings. You want to be You got to remember, people are either, attending, they're paying in some way, shape, or form. They're paying with their time to be there, or they're paying with currency to be at that event. So you want to make it as cost effective as it can be for them. So you should value their time just like they should value everyone else's time. Be prepared, go through. Here I have an outline. In this particular script for Introduction to ASP.NET.Core, I have a set of timings, as I call them. These are the topics I cover. I'm going to walk through an agenda. That's slides 1 through 3 of my PowerPoint slide. And that should take me on average 2 minutes and 37 seconds, let's say. Then I go through ASP.NET Core. By the time I'm done with that, I'm at my 5-minute mark. After that, I cover the Y ASP.NET Core, which should cover slides 5 through 8, and then I'm at 10:14. Now, these are averages. This is not the first time you run through it, because rehearsal is important, like all the previous speakers mentioned. You're selling yourself, you're selling your experience, and you're trying to educate people. So you want to make sure you're clear and concise with what you do. If you have to stumble and look at your deck, or sorry, I forgot, and I'm going to go through the side and talk about something, you're going to lose the audience's interest, and then they're going to devalue what you're saying. I want to avoid that. So I go through these several times. I write out the basic concepts or the basic timings, and then kind of walk through that myself, whether it be with a dog or a local user group, or just talk to myself. I constantly go through them over and over again to perfect it as I'm doing it. So once I perfected the talk and I'm ready to move on to the next step, you go to what I do before the talk. There are actually quite a few things I do just before the talk. The first thing I do is get backups ready. Super in lots of different things can go wrong. Call out the CSharpCorner India conference that I went the first time. We tried out, Mahesh was in a new venue. We were trying out different things. And I remember one of the biggest problems we had was the video displays. We had one VGA cable that went into the laptop, and then about 100 feet of VGA cable to the next projector, which then daisy chained 100 feet off to the next one in the back, which is great. It was doable. Us, the room we were in allowed us to be able to. It was a quite large room. The problem was people getting up, taking over the cable. Cable would knock out one set of the screens, which if you're on a Windows PC would knock out other things. So the moral of that is just be prepared for whatever can go wrong. I typically have screenshots of code just in case, or screenshots of the working application just in case, like I had a screenshot of the tweet earlier. I have code backups. In a lot of my demos, I am writing code from beginning to end. So I back up my code the entire time. Usually it's a point in time backup. So what I started to do was, here, this is still new code. So this is where I start. And then I have a separate, if I look at my outline that I showed you earlier, I have different steps. At this step, this is the code base I'm in. This allows me to be able to go back to the code if anything else happens or anything else goes wrong in the process. Another thing to do is have a USB drive. You'll never know if your computer happens to die when you're doing it. And it's hard to, hey, that's my next point, David, about bringing the video adapters. I always have the code on USB drives or somewhere in the cloud so that if, knock on wood, I ever have an issue with my laptop, in theory, I can find another presenter that has everything that I might need and use that for it. Another thing, I wrote a blog post, a selfish plug. If you go to jjg.me/git tag, I wrote a process for speakers that I use Git that allows you to kind of checkpoint your code so you don't have to have 200 meg of source code sitting on your laptop for each stage. You can use the abilities of Git to do that versioning along. So as you're talking, yeah, I had mine die one time just before I was on an airplane, and Windows 95 decided to do an update at the time, and it was just before a talk, and I got it just up to the time of the talk, which is why backups are super important. In addition to having backups of your code, you need backups of your gear. So as David McCarter mentioned in his, I carry a bag similar to this. With all of us not traveling right now, I have it stashed away, but this bag is very similar to what I guarantee every one of the speakers that have been in this show so far, and even I know David does, have something like this. Backup VGA cable, backup DVI cable. I have from whatever laptop I'm using to VGA, DVI, HDMI, every possible video combination, because you never know what you're walking into. I have backup batteries. I have backup power cables in the event my power travel adapter dies in the middle of a talk. I have charging cables for my phone plugged in. That's my timer for it. So these are important. Yes, it's a little bit of investment, but remember, people are making an investment into you. Make an investment into your craft to be prepared and have something like this. And I'm saying go out and buy this bag right now and fill it up. As you start to do more talks, you'll realize things that you need and that you should have as you're going forward. Which brings me to my next step, preparing. Drink water, drink lots of water. I drink so much water that by the end of my talk, I am ready to run to the restroom to go. It's important to stay hydrated the whole time. And it's just hydrated before so that your throat is lubricated and ready to go to talk. Because the last thing you want to do is to be at your talk and start talking like this because you have no voice. You want to make sure your voice is fully lubricated so that you can change the tone of your voice, or you can laugh with the audience or cry with the audience too, depending on the story you're trying to tell. So drink lots of water, have one or two with you on stage while you're there. There's no harm in stopping for a second, taking a swig of water to do it. But if your voice is perpetually dry just prior to, you might have done yourself no good. So drink up before the talk, be ready for it. Next step is keep calm and arrive early. So it's funny, Magnus put up a talk with the person in the broken glasses. Monica put up a talk with the person checking his phone, which, by the way, you'll notice I'm not wearing a watch. One of the things I learned from Magnus 2 or 3 years ago was to not wear a watch. It's not even on my person. Arrive early. I know it's hard, but with me being what I call myself borderline OCD with things, I arrive early all the time. I'm usually in a I'm usually in the room 15 to 30 minutes early. And I do it for a couple of reasons. One is I want to see the stage that I'm working on, or whether or not I have a podium, or if I have to walk around, or if the acoustics for the room. So I'm looking at all those things so I can help myself deliver the best performances. Yes, make sure spill proofs for me. Quite you. I have yet to do that, knock on wood, but I always keep them super far away from the equipment. I'm guessing there's a story from tech in there. Arrive early to make sure you're there. And it's not just early to get the audio video, but there's a couple of things to do when you arrive. Get your computer ready. If you're like me, you have 1,000 different things running on your laptop. I mean, even right now, given this presentation, I have PowerPoint running. I have a slide deck notes that has all the different things I want to talk about. I have the streaming software on there. I have Twitter running. I have a lot of things running. Get those things off. Turn off any application you don't need. Turn off that virus protection. Turn off your notifications. Turn off those unneeded applications like Stream Deck or your work connecting software. Get your PC ready so that it can provide the fastest response to the talk. Also, set a timer on your phone. You've seen this twice mentioned already. Set a timer, get it ready so you know. The last thing you want to do is in a 70-minute talk, end at 45 minutes and tell the audience, I'm done, I got nothing, see ya. It's an instant 0 on the eval for that. But show up early, get ready. Also get yourself ready. Take off your badge. If you're wearing a conference badge, take it off when you get on stage. Take off your watch. And then remember, go. It's next part. Go. Have fun. Remember, we're not all perfect. This is going to happen. Mistakes happen. Things happen. You want to be that expert, but life happens. You're never going to be prepared. You're never going to be perfect. So don't worry about it. Don't be nervous. If you're nervous when it happens, the audience is going to see that you're nervous and think that you might not know what you're doing. Show them that you know what you're doing. I could be nervous, like I'm nervous right now, and I've given this talk many, many, many times. Funny point you brought up, Monica, with setting and starting your timer. Catherine Dollard of Microsoft PM gave me this tip one time, that when she remembers to start her timer, she doesn't start it at the talk. So 10 minutes before she goes on, whenever she's doing her preparation, she starts her timer then. So she doesn't do, if like right now we have a 60-minute talk or a 30-minute talk, she does it 10 minutes too. She'll set it for 40 minutes because way too many times she's forgotten to hit start. That's it. Once you're done with the talk, don't do what some public speakers do, and that's bolt and leave. Remember, people are paying to be there. So stick around afterwards if you can. Sometimes flights come up and you have to run or have to leave. That happens, but try to avoid that. Try to be around and listen for feedback. Both Magnus and Monica mentioned to listen to your talks, rehearse your talks. Listen, I've started a live stream on Twitch 2 weeks ago. I've been recording them and listening back and forth to them to see what mistakes I'm making, what things I can do better. Is my audio okay? Are my expressions okay? Am I using my hands enough or using them too much? Listen to yourself, but listen to your audience too. Take that feedback and listen. Listening is very important. People are in most cases, paying for you to be there. You're providing a service. Listen to your customer, your audience. Let them tell you what they got out of it, what they didn't get out of it. Work with that to help make yourself better, your talk better, and then ultimately the next experience better. But what do you do with that feedback once you get it? You continuously improve. So we work on, if you're into agile or any other software development practices, you're always trying to make ourselves better. I have one motto that I follow in life. I actually have a couple, but I want to leave this world better than it was when I arrived. So I am always looking for ways to improve myself to make everything else around me better. So I want to listen to feedback. So I'll be going through Twitter, live comments on here to see if there's anything I could have done better for this talk, as well as all the talks I do. And then what I do, after I get all that feedback, I take it back and I try to implement it right away. So someone might tell me, well, your slide on backups, the colors were off. I'll go back and change that right there to see. Only because if you take your notes and write them down on a pad, and then I'm giving this talk 4 months later, I might not remember what an audience member was talking about by gray on blue. I'd have to go through all my sides. Take the notes down, go back to your hotel room or wherever you're staying. Start doing those changes right there. Rerun through it to see if that change makes sense. This allows you to grow. And if you have that script, like I talked about 4 or 5 slides ago, update that script so that next time you give it, you're implementing that feedback right away. That's all I have for us right now on slide preparation with 3 minutes left to go. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat right now. The moderators will take a look at it. You can reach out to me on any one of these mechanisms right now. Thank you. I hope you have had a great time. I see Naveen coming on. Ooh, and Mahesh, look at that.
Hey, definitely good points. I learned something. One time I forgot to go to bathroom before my talk. And I remember I had my third, fourth tea. And during all my during all my definitely a good one. Naveen, can you join as well? Definitely good points taken out from there. I also remember a few times I went to the rooms and there was, I have newer laptop and there was different cable needed. So make sure, I mean, it's after that now I make sure I know. There you go. Joe in the bathroom now. That's there you go.
My laptop bag.
There you go. Yeah. No, he's there. Simon, Joe is there. Just
yeah, I'm here. I have multiple cables in my bag to pop up. All my speaking stuff I carry around with me for all my talks in this little thing.
Yeah, this is important for any new speaker who's trying to get into the speaking. That make sure, as Joe said, call and make sure what kind of device or connector, presenter, whatever, talk to the conferences, talk to the meetup places, and make sure you have all the things you needed before that. And I think even going earlier, half an hour to the room and check and make sure, connection works and all that. Any questions we have? We have what, 1 more minute. Any questions we can take for Joe right now?
Nice to virtually meet you too, Kamish. And I'm glad you like that slide, Prashant, about me.
Yeah. So definitely I like your walking standing desk. I think I'm going to get one of those. I like to stand
Yeah.
and talk. I don't like
Yep.
sitting and talking. So I think
I used to work from home at my current employer until I started a physical office. So I spent about $600. 300 was on this desk. It's autonomous.ai,
oh,
and
okay, okay.
$300 for their chair, and it's great. It has 4 pre-configured settings. So I have a sitting setting, a standing setting, which it's in now, and at the press of a button, I can shrink down to sitting. By the
Oh,
way,
I love
welcome
that.
to my man cave in lovely Phoenix, Arizona, depending on where you are, halfway across the world. And
Yeah,
now
I
I'm at
love that.
Liberty
I
City.
think I'm gonna get that. I'm gonna get that desk, and I like you are running. Your fan was running, so it must be nice and warm there.
I need that
Oh,
too.
yeah.
I need that too.
It hit,
I need that part.
we hit
Maybe
90
because I think
degrees yesterday, which is, I think, 19 degrees Celsius or somewhere around there. We're about to break some record highs this weekend, and it's only 9 o'clock here. I had the fan going in the beginning, and I kind of want to kick it off now, but I was afraid of all the noise.
That was fine. I think it was fine. These cameras and everything is great. All right, that's awesome. That's great. Thank you, Joe. Thank you for joining us. I know it's not easy that morning. Let's move to our next speaker. Can you put the slide in for Alan? Hey, welcome, Alan.
Hey,
From beautiful background. Looks
yeah,
like you have awesome. You're
look at
sitting
my
in the.
big awesome house. This
I
is
like it. I'm moving with you, moving in with you with the
you,
piano.
yeah, you can sit in the back and give us some tunes, right?
There you go. All
So
right.
this is one of
Please.
the things that we'll talk about in this a little bit later, is some of this green screen stuff. So it'll be fun.
Awesome. Yeah, take it. It's all you. I think we're good. It's all you, and looking here, watching you right here.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So do we have my? I think I've shared my screen there. Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to just go here and be unprepared, and go into my PowerPoint so I can see it here. Perfect. Okay. So first of all, what we're going to try and do is we're going to talk about how do we get from what we're used to, which is our in-person conferences and talks, to having a mega studio at our home base. Well, not really, we don't need that, okay? But how to get to a home base where we can broadcast, where we can record really good quality videos, etc., and do it with as high quality as we can, with the lowest budget that we can. And we'll cover all sorts of different things. So just on me for a quick second, I'm primarily an engineer, and the one thing that I like to do, two things actually. One thing I like to do is learning, so I continue to learn all my life. And the second thing I like to do is share knowledge, and it's critically important. And now that we're in this lockdown situation, it's even more important that we keep sharing our knowledge and we keep helping each other out in the community. So just because we're locked away in our houses doesn't mean that we can't continue to share, and that's really awesome that our community could organize this event for us. So the agenda that we're going to look at today, we're going to talk briefly about where do we start. We're going to talk about location and tools. We'll talk about audio. We'll talk about video, recording, and also then a little bit about streaming. And what we can do is then we can have a good chat afterwards with questions that folk might have. I've been doing recording for quite some time, a number of years. I do a lot of corporate recording for clients, where they require training that's very specific to their organization, that includes their technology, etc. So I've got through a lot of techniques on what works and what doesn't work, and hopefully we can share some of that today. So where do we start? The fundamentals of broadcasting or of recording are pretty much the same as in person. You've got to know the subject that you're going to talk about, and you need to know, of course, the reason that you're presenting. Secondly, you've got to make sure that, as other speakers have said today, that you plan. It's really, really critically important that you plan what you're going to talk about, so that you're not bumbling and bumbling all the way through it. it's really good practice to write notes and to keep monitoring what you're doing and stick to the notes. So if you have notes in front of you, like I'm actually looking at you now on the camera, but I've also got my eyes kind of half on a screen that I have straight in front of me as well, I'm able to see what I'm meant to be doing and what I'm meant to be talking about, so that you don't go off and deviate and say, oh, there's an idea, I'll go and talk about that thing. And then suddenly, A, you lose time, and B, you're not exactly sure what you were talking about. You lose track of your thoughts and you're, oh, what was I talking about? And it looks really unprofessional. So it's important to have notes and to plan about what you're going to do. The next thing is, it's really important to have an agenda, so that you're not saying, oh, I'll roughly talk about that and I'll roughly talk about the other, but that you have a couple of points that you tell people how you're going to take their time. Because remember, time is the one thing that we cannot give back. Once we spend this time from our time bank, we can't give it back again. And it's very important that we realize that people come to us to learn and to allow us to share our knowledge with them. And we don't want to abuse their time, okay? Because their time can't be given back either. So it's really important to let people know, this is what I'm going to tell you about. If you're interested, fantastic, stay with me. And if not, you know what? We meet another time and that's awesome as well. Set a time limit, so that you say, it's only going to take 30 minutes. It's only going to take 15 minutes. If I run longer, I'll let you know, etc. Appearance of what you're doing is important. So earlier on, I was wearing a grubby t-shirt because I was doing some work around the house. And now I've got this really awesome Hawaiian shirt on. And I think it looks awesome. So I'm really beautiful and handsome in this. The next thing is, you have to lay down the ground rules. Are you doing something live? Are you going to have some questions and answers? Are you going to allow folk to come in while you're actually talking and start asking questions at that time? Are you going to ask people to hold your questions till afterwards? So that's important to set those rules up front. Use a stopwatch and rehearse what you're doing. And also make sure you use a stopwatch when you're working live, so that you can see how you're continuing, how your time is going, etc. The next thing is to be polite and respectful of your audience. In the same way as you'd like them to be polite and respectful to you, you've got to make sure that just because you're hidden behind this camera and you're hidden behind the internet, it doesn't mean that you can go and just say whatever you think. It's very important to be respectful of your audience, because they're giving their time up to learn and to get some of your knowledge. And finally, it's also important to have your contact information somewhere on the presentation. Normally, if I'm doing it, I'll either give it at the start of a slide or I'll give it in the end slide, or alternatively, I will have it at the bottom of the slide, that it's there continuously. And I usually just give my Twitter handle or my email. I don't generally go for logos. As Magnus has said, I try to keep it as simple as possible. Now, you will notice that I have a lot of stuff on screen here. I normally don't, but because I bang this together quickly, it's not as slick as I would like it to be. So in any case, let's move on a bit. The next thing I want to talk about is location. If you don't get this part right, there's no point in doing it, okay? Now, it's funny that I'm saying that, because right behind me now here, I have two of my family dogs, and at any moment, if there's a delivery outside, they might bark and go mad. So I'm violating the first rule of having a quiet room and having everything planned and controlled. It's important that you warn the family or roomies that you're living with that you're recording. I have a door sign that I put in my front door, and it just says, shh, Alan's recording. So people know not to knock on the door and not to burst in and say, hey, wait till I tell you my news. The next thing is to test and rehearse in the place that you're going to do it. So don't go off and do your rehearsing maybe in your head in a coffee shop or something, or in your kitchen. Go to the place that you're actually going to do your recording or do your live session, and test and check things out there, because that's the place that things will go wrong, and that's where you need to be. The next thing is expect failure, because when you're recording and you're trying to do all these multiple things at once, I guarantee something will go wrong. So you need to have a backup plan, whether that be thinking that, okay, if my internet goes down, I'm going to be able to refer people to a pre-recording I have. If my computer dies, I have another backup one here to slot in, etc. And if you have a multi-person session, there's multi people coming into it, make sure that you test connectivity, not just with yourself, but with those other people who are joining the conversation as well. The next thing we want to talk about in location is the environment. So do you have a big room or a small room? If you have a big room, you're going to get a lot of echo. you're going to get a lot of back noise. On the other hand, if your room is smaller, you'll generally get a better sound because there's not as much sound echoing around the hard walls. If you have soft furnishings in the room, it helps to absorb the sound waves, and to make the sound better and have less harshness to it. You should have good lighting, and you should have comfortable seating. You can either have your bottle of water, but you're preferable if you have it to have something like a glass of water, so that you're not lifting up something that blocks the camera. And finally then, in this one here, like the environment, make sure that you're comfortable. Make sure that the temperature is not too hot and not too cold. And if you prefer, like Joe and Mahesh there, to stand up, stand up. If you haven't got one of those fancy standing desks, go to your normal desk, put a few books on top of it, and put your laptop on there, and off you go. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about audio and how bad audio can kill a session. The first thing to note is you don't need expensive equipment, right? But you do need to take your time and prepare. And it's really critical to remove echoes that are in the room. And we'll look at some ways to do that shortly. It's also important to take note of background noise that's going on. So this could be anything from the noise of the traffic outside to maybe somebody ringing a phone in the room next door to you, all these different things. And as Saurav says there quite rightly, warn the family what you're doing. Let them know that you need that extra piece of quiet, please, because you're sharing with people. Make sure that your microphone is off the desk. So for example, right now, I have a microphone here, and as you can see, it's on a boom stand, so it's not actually sitting on the desk. If I had the microphone sitting on the desk, there's quite a likelihood that as I'm moving around, and even the small body movements that I have, you're going to hear this type of noise, okay? So that's microphone movement noise that you don't want. And if you have a mic off your desk, it's more likely that you get a better distraction-free sound. The next thing is to use a pop filter. This part here is a pop filter. And what it does is it removes the... So when you listen to somebody on a microphone, they're going testing, 1, 2, 3, and you hear them using this. This is called sibilance and is called pop. So when you have one of these things here, it's just a little small mesh screen that you sit on top of your microphone. It helps to reduce those what are called plosive sounds because they're explosive, right? So it helps remove those and takes them down. You don't have to have something fancy like I have here. What you can do is instead you can get some piece of very light cloth like hessian or some mesh. You can get some tights or something and just stretch that over, and it does just as good. But the important thing is to not get right on top of your mic and do all of that plosive thing. That's important, okay? The next thing is speak clearly and slowly. Now, I know that that's difficult at times when we're dealing with people with different accents and from different places, and maybe they're speaking in a second language, etc. And that makes it all the more important, because not only are the people who are speaking have got to be clear, but the people who are listening maybe in a second language, they've got to be able to understand what you're saying. So it's important to talk slowly and to respect those as part of your audience and help them to understand you. And if possible, use auto captioning. You can use this from, you can get this from YouTube. You can also get it in PowerPoint. You can lock it in. I haven't done it today, unfortunately, because I haven't had it set up in this new machine. But the next time we'll do one, I'll perhaps give a demo on that because it's kind of cool. So the next thing then, let's go back to my slide here, is some tips and tricks. So in relation to microphones and equipment and that kind of stuff, the first thing is do not use the inbuilt PC microphone. That's an absolute no-no. When they're making a computer or a laptop, the microphone that they put in there is generally one of the cheapest that they can possibly get, in the same way as the camera is usually one of the cheapest that they can possibly get. And although I'm coming to you now on a reasonable Logitech camera, or webcam rather, it would be far better if I had my proper camera set up. Again, I'm moving rooms, so I don't have that. But just to show you, if I stretch out of sign here, Normally, I would actually be coming through, and I'll get this into the frame. I would be coming through a proper DSLR, and it would be coming through with a high frame rate, and it would be much sharper with proper lighting, etc. But we'll go into that in a few minutes. The next thing is surround yourself with soft material, because that helps to dampen echo. And we'll see that shortly as well. Keep a consistent distance from the microphone. Don't move around. If I'm back here and I'm moving around and I'm talking, you're going to get the volume of your sound is going to go up and it's going to go down, and then it's going to get too loud in people's ears. So try not to move around. And in general, in relation to a microphone, you do what Dave does. Okay, so Dave does this here from the rock thing. But what I use this for is, this is the distance that I keep away from a microphone. So it's one hand span like this. And this is how I do it. Look, I go to the microphone and I say, that's generally as far as I should be. So if I'm here, that's about the right sound. Now, this particular microphone that I'm using actually needs to have me a little bit closer to get that more bassy sound. So that's why I'm a little bit closer. So the next thing is practice not saying and It's actually very difficult. I'm the world's worst for this, but if you listen to some folk, they generally don't say it at all. I was listening to, I said it again, and when you concentrate it in your head, it really, really, really wrecks your brain. I was listening to Mahesh, I was listening to Magnus, I was listening to Joe, to Monica, and I didn't hear a lot of this going on. So maybe it's a quantum of my background or something, that every couple of seconds I say but try and get out of this habit, because it's not great. The next thing is, try and keep your voice volume consistent. Don't go up and don't go down. Try and keep it consistent. Monica talked about this as well, and it's even more important when you're actually recording something rather than when you're on the live stage. The next thing we're going to look at here then is we're going to look at audio equipment. Now, I said earlier on, you don't need very expensive equipment. In fact, you can get away with what you have, but do not use your PC equipment, because I guarantee you, you will not get great sound. If you want to have good audio, one of the best ways to do it on the cheap is to use what you have. So get your standard phone, be it an Android phone or an iPhone, and get yourself a lavalier mic. And a lavalier mic is one of those things that pins into your collar. And what you do is, because it's up here close to you, it gets a good sound. The sound is close to your mouth, and it discards anything that's far back here away from you. Whereas when you use a PC mic, it's going to capture everything all the way around. You use a lavalier mic, it's going straight into the phone, and you're going to get a much sharper, much better sound. Now, of course, it does mean that you need to link them back together again at the end, your audio and your video, but that's not a big deal. We can have a look at that as well. But this is the cheapest way to get away with audio equipment. The next one is investing a little bit of money. So what you see here will probably cost about $150, $180 or so. And if you do what I do and try and get the stuff always secondhand, you can really get bargains all over the place. So the first thing here is a very standard Audio-Technica AT2020. Blue sets, absolutely giant. They work very well as well, also because they generally have good audio cancelling on them. So an AT2020 is a good starter microphone. And the idea is, you take this microphone, you put it into what's called an audio interface. And the audio interface then gets plugged into your computer. And then, of course, as I said there, on the right-hand side, you'll see that we have the boom stand and a mic filter. And we'll make this available, this information available afterwards on the website. Perhaps we'll do an article around it. Next thing then is going up the scale a little bit again. And here we're showing what's a Rode NT1A microphone, which an awful lot of podcasters and screen recorders use. I used to use the device there in the center for a while, which is a Scarlett USB device, which is fantastic value and gives a really, really, really good quality sound. And then finally, again, you have your boom mic to keep everything going. The next level up then is getting into a couple of $100, and you would have the likes of the Shure SM7B mic. We have, again, the Scarlett USB interface, but then you have an interesting thing. We have what's called a Cloudlifter preamp. This is a preamplifier because some microphones have a very low pickup volume. So you actually have to talk loudly to get them to pick you up. or they're not actually taking in the good, deep bass sounds of your voice. And it can sound very, very light, like a child. So if you get a cloud lifter, it helps to lift up your voice and makes it much more robust and sound better. So you can also sound like a radio presenter. Okay, so we're going to talk now about some improvements that you can do in your home to help you get a good quality of sound. You do not need to put thousands of dollars into getting all of this soundproof equipment here. It's stuff that you can do easily, cheaply yourself at home. In fact, you don't have to buy anything to get a good sound. And we look at some of the ways to do it now. This, believe it or not, is some of the best ways to get good sound. First of all, you can get yourself, for example, on the left-hand side there, you can make a stand around your desk and you can put up some plastic tubing and then cover it in blankets. Just simply using blankets or towels like this will dramatically improve the sound of your voice, because what it does is it removes all the echo that's going around the room and takes away all of those reflections and that very harsh sound and makes it much more compact and compressed, which is an easier thing to hear on the ears for people who are listening. You can also use any kind of thick, soft object. So you can see the gentleman there on the right-hand side has actually made a recording booth from a couple of mattresses. So I suppose he probably told his wife and his kids to get away for the day so he could take the beds and make a camper van outside of it inside in the house, so he could do some awesome recording. And then finally, there's the standard ways of doing it. I actually use this type of setup at times. It's not quite a blanket over my head, but I have a small wooden frame made that just goes up around me like so. And then I have a blanket that gets thrown over it, because I work in a very, very big, large room. And sometimes I can get quite a lot of echo and harsh sounds. So by doing this when I want consistently high quality audio, nobody ever knows that I'm sitting there with my head under a blanket like some weirdo, okay? But it gives me the most awesome sound. It sounds like I'm in a really professional recording booth. A lot of people as well actually lock themselves into their closet, because again, inside the closet, you've got all sorts of different clothes and materials that will soften the sound and make it sound much better. So that's a good place to do it as well. So the next thing then is to talk about video. Good video is not difficult to do. We don't need expensive equipment, but you do need some time to prepare the stuff, and you need to get the lighting right if you're using a camera. Of course, if we're doing video that just has screen recording, we don't need the camera, but do consider upgrading from a webcam if you're going to do this stuff more full-time, or if you're going to do it in any way professionally, where folk maybe are starting to pay you for doing your stuff, or if you want to go on YouTube and you need to get good content. Number one, it's about audio. Number two, it's about video. Unfortunately, the content comes last, because if you have an engaging presence and some kind of quick story to tell, people will actually stand there and watch you. It's the way it works. So some tricks in relation to video. First of all, as I said, in relation to the microphone, I don't want you to use the inbuilt PC camera. They're usually awful. They're the cheapest things that manufacturers can get. A phone camera is far better than a webcam. So in the same way as we used our microphone earlier on, what you do is you use in the same way as we used a phone earlier on to record as a microphone, we can use the camera on your phone, which is usually far better than a webcam with all these 4K resolution and everything else, to record a fantastic picture. And then, of course, you can move it around, you can talk to folk and everything else, and it's good. Now, the camera position is really important, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And again, one of the other things we've got to make sure that we do is we don't have backlight. And what backlight means is that you have a window behind you that's shining light from behind, because it means that in the front, you're going to be all dark and difficult to see. And if you look difficult to see, it's bad quality and people get disengaged and they don't want to listen to you, and it's not great for the production. So the next thing then we look at is the camera angle. The camera angle is critical. Now, I'm not doing what I should be doing, which is looking directly at the camera itself. You can see me now. I can't properly see myself on screen because I'm trying to look up here as well as look down here, but you get the idea, okay? By looking straight into the camera is the best possible position. If you look at this lady here, what she's doing is she's using her standard camera in the laptop, and by looking down, it means that when the camera is looking up at her, first of all, it casts very bad shadows underneath her face. Her hair is acting as a curtain, as a barrier, and it's making her face very dark. And it's not very flattering, let's say, to have a camera come up at you like this, especially when you're fat and gray-haired like Santa Claus like me, because then they get to see all your double chins, right? Now, the reason I have a beard is to hide all my double chins, but that's a different story. Okay, so camera angle is critical. Make sure that you don't have your camera pointing up at you like this, and equally don't have it pointing downwards at a bad angle. So we look at some other ways if we can improve that now. So if you look at the girl here, we have a camera that's down, emulating what a laptop would look like, and then we have a camera on top that looks straight at the eye. Now, I have an XPS laptop, and I was talking to a chap about it earlier on, and those of you who know about different laptops and technology know that the Dell XPS laptop had a camera that was actually right down at the bottom of the screen of the laptop in the last edition. The new edition, they've moved it to the top, but in the last edition, it was in the bottom. And this meant that it was constantly pointing up like this, but at an extreme angle, so that it actually became known as the nose cam, right? So you don't want your camera pointing up your nose and showing people what you have up your nose. It's not a good picture image to have. So make sure that you have your camera angle as tight as you can, looking straight at your eyes as much as possible. The next thing is camera height, okay? It's important not necessarily to have you be looking at the camera and the camera is kind of down there, okay? Or get my hands here into the shot. So you don't want the camera angle to be down there. You want the camera to be up level with your eyes. So if you look at this guy here, his laptop is down, so he can't help that it's going to point up. So he's just propped a few books underneath the thing, and that gets it up and more level with the eye. So again, it's much more natural to be looking straight in like that at the camera. And if you ever look at an interview on TV, you'll see people look straight at the camera. They always say, look at the lens, don't look at the cameraman. So I'm looking straight at the lens, and therefore I'm looking straight into your eyes, okay? So in the next one then, we're going to look at framing the shot. So framing the shot is also important. When you look at me here, I'm showing just my shoulders and my head, and it fills the frame nicely. So if you're too far back, it's distracting, number one. And number two, your sound will be bad because you're going to be all the way back here. So not only does it look bad, it sounds bad. And then, of course, if you bring yourself in far too close, it looks even worse, but it can sound even better. Okay, so that's my rock star voice. We'll hear more of that from Dave later on, I'm sure. Okay, the next slide we're going to look at then is the key takeaways for video. Number one, do not have a cluttered background. Tidy up your space, okay? If you can't tidy up your space, we'll look at using a green screen. I would not like to show you what's behind me right now in my workshop. It's appalling. If my better half saw this, she would kill me. Number two, what we want to do is we want to have some ensure that we don't have too much space above our head. So if I'm down like this, it doesn't look as good as if I'm up here. And make sure that you have good eye contact, okay? I'm reading a lot from my screen. I'm trying to watch what I'm doing, so I don't have excellent eye contact, but it's important to keep coming back to the camera all the time and still look. If we have poor lighting or the upward angle and no eye contact, we can see what the result is there in the middle. It doesn't look great. And then the good result, although we have still not a great background, is the one on the right-hand side. We've got good lighting, good framing, and we've got good eye contact. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is green screen. So green screen, if we look at it, on the left-hand side, we can see the lady is there and she's talking away. She's at her desk, and behind her is the busy office. Everybody's working away, and it's quite distracting. Whereas on the right-hand side, she has a static picture behind her. It's not distracting, and it's easy for us to focus on the presenter, on the presenter's content, and not on the distracting background, saying, oh, they're very nice beams on the ceiling. I wonder, where is that? That's kind of a rustic thing. Is it out in the country? So that type of thing. The next thing then in the green screen thing is we can look at ways to get green screen. So here's two particular ways, for example. We can use a product called, now you're hearing one of my golden rules there, don't have distractions in the room. I don't know if you can hear that, but one of my dogs is whining to get out. So I'm going to leave it on the screen for 5 seconds while I let him out. 1, 2, come on, puppies, out you go, out you go, out you go. 3, 4, 5, and I'm back in. Okay, so Puppies are good distractions. Now, the next thing is we're looking here at ways that we can use a green screen if we don't actually have a proper green screen. So the first one is a piece of software called ChromaCam. So if you go and bingle that up, by the way, I'm going off script here. The thing it's called bingling, I'm not sure if anybody is aware of that. It's a mixture of going to Google something and going to Bing something, because you're never quite sure which is going to give you the best result. So you bingle something. So if you go and bingle yourself ChromaCam, you'll be able to find this piece of software. It comes out, and first of all, there's a free version. I think it puts a logo across the bottom, and the other version is reasonably cheap. It's only 20 or 30 bucks, but it gives you a good sharp bit of AI that removes the background behind you. So you can see there, for example, in the back of me, I'm actually using a standard green screen, and it's nice and sharp. Okay, there's no fuzz. If I took away my green screen, it wouldn't be. When we look at what ChromaCam is doing there, it's giving that nice background. Secondly, if you look at the likes of Skype or Teams, you can get an auto blur of the background. So folk can be doing whatever they want in the background, but it's not going to be as distracting. Now, the next level up is when you actually get a real green screen. So there's a few ways of doing this. The first way is you can get yourself a little thing that clips onto the back of your desk, and it just goes around like this, just around the portion of your head that's going to get captured by the camera, and that will give you a good green screen effect. And the other thing you can do is what I do is I have this pull-up sheet behind me. So as you can see there, you can see the lighting is good in at the face. They've got a nice chair, and then the green screen at the back allows them to get rid of all of that clutter in the background. They can put any image that they want to project there. Finally, then, I'm going to show you this one, which is a pull-up green screen. And this is exactly what I use. So I found that having all sorts of bars and everything else behind me was just taking too long to set up and take down every time. So these things are actually exactly the same as a when you go to a show, you go to a conference, and you have those pull-up stands, saying, come and buy my product. That's exactly what this is, except rather than having a logo on it, it's just pure green. Okay, just pure green, and it acts as the perfect backdrop. When I want to do it, it takes me 4 seconds to go to the wall, pull it out of the shelf, zip it up, and I'm done, ready to go. When I'm finished, I zip it down, boom, we're done. Awesome. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about recording videos and screens and the software that we're going to use to get that stuff going. My main tool, my go-to tool all the time is Camtasia. Camtasia is easy to learn, it's reasonably cheap, and it does a fantastic job. It has its glitches and everything else, but it's very, very simple to use. So if you're looking to do some quality recording, I would strongly recommend that you have a look at Camtasia. If you start getting into more video editing rather than screencasting, you then need to raise up and look at something a little bit better than Camtasia, perhaps. And one of the ones that I use for heavy video editing is Premiere Pro. It's not easy to learn. There's a lot in it, but it's very, very powerful. So it's well worth looking at if you're considering getting into a lot of video heavy stuff. The next thing then is audio. And there's two things that I use to record audio. First of all, it's important that I don't record my audio and my video generally at the same time, or if I do, they're recorded on separate devices. So I record my video straight through a streaming device into my PC, and then my audio I record through a separate device which goes onto a drive. And then I bring the two back together again. And the reason is that I haven't yet found one piece of software that's awesome for both video and for audio together. So I have to use two different things to get the best of both worlds and bring them all back together again. Audacity is an absolutely awesome tool, and it's free. And we love free. Naveen Sharma, you should be ashamed to be using a Macintosh. This is CSharpCorner, C#. It comes from Windows, I think. You should be ashamed of yourself. I used to have a Macintosh and I got rid of it because I think they're awful things. But if you do want to use your Macintosh, I believe that there's a number of built-in ones already that you can use. The Camtasia for Macintosh isn't fantastic, but what I have done before on the Macintosh that I used to have, until I saw the light and got rid of it and got a proper Linux box instead, is I actually ran my Camtasia inside a virtual machine of Windows on the Macintosh itself. Okay, so Audacity. Audacity is free. It's the one to go with. And if not, if you want something higher end, again, it's the one that I use for my audio because it gives me more effects and everything else, is Audio Audition. It's paid for, but it's extremely powerful. And it allows me to do things like if I have sibilance there going through, or I have discovering any pops coming through in my sound, maybe even I hear the dog barking in the background, the birds, if I've left the window open, something like that. I can go and I can use some filters in Audition to remove automatically that background noise. I went silent for a reason. And that is that sometimes what you want to do, and you find it in a lot of professional audio, is that they don't allow any little background sound to creep in at all. They want it to be completely silent. And you can do this as well in this software. You can say, when the sound drops below a certain level, well, then cut it out and make it silent. Okay, so that's another one you can do. We'll come to call those questions, and maybe Simon and I told them at the end, and we can answer those for you. Okay, the next thing then is streaming. So what I use for streaming is OBS Studio, especially when I have to do multiple folk coming together. And OBS Studio is Open Broadcast Studio, and it's free software. It's absolutely awesome. It can be temperamental sometimes, but it's quite amazing that something this powerful is free. You can go in and you can hook multiple people into it. You get multiple scenes. It acts and operates in the same way as a professional video and audio desk would do in a TV studio, and it's for free. It's for nothing, and we like that, right? And like, you know, those guys are giving back in their way, in the same way as we as community give back to each other by sharing our knowledge, etc., etc. So well worth looking at OBS Studio. The other good thing to know about Audio Studio or OBS Studio is that you can automatically link out and stream live to Twitch, to YouTube, etc., multiple different channels, Facebook, and it handles it with ease. There's no problems at all with it. We're actually, at the moment, have been doing like many folk, the Azure Global Bootcamp, and we've been doing that for yesterday. We're doing it today, and we have some live sessions on tomorrow. And all of that I'm managing using 3 virtual machines, all running OBS Studio up on Azure. And if you have time tomorrow, you'll be able to see it on Azure Global Bootcamp 2020 there in the main link. And that is it. We've come to the end, and that's probably the most knowledge that I can impart in 30 minutes. So if you guys want to pull me back there and bring Mahesh and whoever else in, I'm happy to answer any questions. I can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Wow, that was great. That looks like you put so much work in it. You can clearly say very entertaining.
Good. It took me, honestly, to put that together, took me 40 minutes.
Wow.
That's why we don't have really nice slides. There was all text. So I apologize to Magnus.
I think the whole acting thing did it pretty good. It was pretty good. And now I know I need to start, putting my beer back in that.
Yeah.
I gotta work on that.
Beardies are more handsome, right?
Yeah. So get rid of those double chin. We're gonna work on that.
So thank you, Martin. It's actually growing on everyone now.
Yeah.
With round tummy, double chins, everything. So, and
that's right.
The session was fantastic. It was a lot to learn, and you really, are a pro in this, because the kind of audio, the kind of video, and you gave the demos in between as well, with the testing with the mic and the remote voices. And I think an ideal YouTuber, blogger, vlogger, or virtual meeting experts, they should know all these caveats and tips and tricks to make them more efficient and effective. Yeah.
Correct. That's correct. Very, very, very useful. We're going to make this available to public, obviously the whole recording, and then we're going to have a Q&A after David's session as well. So we'd love to have you back during that time.
Absolutely, no problem.
Thank
Looking
you, Alan.
forward to it.
Few people ask you question that you can answer in a panel, like what would be the roundup cost to set up this home studio, inexpensive home studio, for an occasional vlogger, so that they can start thinking about it, and then you can you already gave the recommendation on software, hardware, then you can just sum it up in somewhere, and then
Yep.
so
So what we'll do is we'll certainly ask me those questions at the panel Q&A, and I'll go through and give you some of those costs and everything else. We can actually do it for zero money, and we like zero money. Or we can also spend the lotto winnings if we want to on this, right? Also, let's maybe when we're finished, I will do an article on this and put it onto our community website and put it out. And in addition, let's put it into a video that we push out as well, so folk can watch it afterwards if they want to.
That'll be great. That'll be great. And yeah, you said it. We are developers. We like zero money. We like everything free. We love free.
yes.
That's how it should be. Everything should be free.
So with zero money, I can think of having fun while learning coding, and nothing else better than David can tell us about that.
So before, yeah, that's good. Go ahead, Simon. Can you add David as well? So me, I go to
Yes,
conferences, and we started CSharpCorner conference, but fun has to be the important part of a conference. Cannot be boring. It cannot be just like everybody's walking like. So let's bring in David McCarter, one of the leaders, I would say most experienced speakers in our gang. Probably 26 years experience doing all this speaking with entertainment. He's probably the youngest Microsoft MVP
yes.
among us. He's
Yes.
probably like 30 times Microsoft MVP, probably 20 definitely. So let's welcome David and let him tell the story himself, and then we'll learn something about how to make this speaking fun. David,
Yes.
welcome.
Welcome,
Hey, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Can hear you,
Yes.
Dave.
Okay.
David.
The people on, I should put on my headphone. Hold on a sec. The people on the YouTube don't realize there's like a 10-second delay.
Yes.
So I can't see myself.
You should not watch the YouTube. Just focus on, this studio is pretty good.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So, hey, welcome everybody. I'm glad everybody's here for the.
We're having a sound problem.
I think
I'm really glad
you take us out.
I have all these other experts here. Magnus has really messed me up with my slides. My deck has crashed twice since I've been trying to fix it because of Magnus. And then with Alan's talk, I was messing with my camera the whole time. So thanks a lot, Alan. That's what people. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, it sounds good now. It's back. Yeah, everything is good. Yeah, sound is good. Yeah.
Okay. So for those of you who don't know me, which I think most people probably do, I'm David McCarter. I'm a Microsoft MVP, award-winning developer, blah, blah, blah. There's all my handles and things like that. I've got a lot to go over in half an hour. I could probably easily talk about this for 3 hours. So let's get going. Oh, yeah. And this is my 26th year speaking in public. So I started almost 26 years ago, and I'm still doing it for some reason. So here's what we're going to talk about really quick today. Kind of why I'm passionate about this subject, bringing fun to speaking, building a brand really quick, and then my number one tip that I've never shared public. So you guys are going to be the first one to hear my number one tip that I try to instill to beginner speakers when I meet them for the first time at a conference. So Let's do opening act. So speaking facts. So these are some quick facts according to me, right? And so to me, speaking is fun, right? Not in the beginning. I was terrified, just like most of you probably were. I was terrified. Speaking was the last thing I ever wanted to do. But now I try to bring fun in it. I try to bring my personality into it. I try to bring in things I really like in my world, like music and photography and graphic arts and things like that. So I do those things mostly just because it makes it fun for me and hopefully for my audience too. So building a brand is important. I'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit. And the other thing is speaking expands your knowledge, right? I think a lot of speakers out there think that, I'm there to, teach them. Well, you learn through this process too, because, a lot of us want to go up on stage and know what the heck we're talking about. So it forces us, to learn the subject at least good enough to answer questions, especially live questions. So I've found through my career, running a user group for 20 years, speaking there, speaking for 26 years, teaching at a university for 18 years, all these things has really expanded my knowledge. And I think I'm a better developer because of it. So I wanted to really make that point for this one. So last week I did this Twitter poll, and I wanted to find out, how do people feel after they leave a session at a conference, right? And I gave some choices there, and 60% said they were excited to try the subject. At least for me, it's the opposite. Most conference talks I go to, I'm number 4 there. So at least with this talk and talking about fun and brand, I want to fix this 30% so that 100% of the people, well, 90% according to this poll, 90% of the people walk away going, I want to try this tomorrow or as soon as I get home. And that is the goal. And to kind of, prove this theory, is yesterday I was supposed to be in Portugal speaking at NDC Porto, but unfortunately because of the pandemic I couldn't. So I did it virtually, and it was the first time I spoke at NDC. I was a little bit nervous because I've never spoken there before, and I was a little nervous because I usually don't do live sessions like this. I record things, but this is some tweets that I got afterwards, and this really helps me not only feel better about my talk, but that I actually reached people. I look for tweets right after my talk to see what people are saying. So let's talk about bringing the fun to your speaking. So the first thing I want to talk a little bit about with the next slides is, software engineering sessions don't need to be boring, right? Most are. And a lot of things that the guys have and lady talked about today kind of tell you why, monotone voice, looking at your computer, not engaging with the audience, all these things, right? Make software engineering talks boring. And, software engineering is not the most exciting thing in the world. But, you can make it fun. And I try to really do that a lot in my talks. And because I've learned this the hard way as usual through the 26 years. So engage your audience. The other speakers today have talked about this. It's really important to engage your audience. And I'll talk a little bit about some tips that I do to try to engage my audience. But, this is super important. So they walk away feeling good about the session and about you, and hopefully buy your book or come see you again. One thing I wrote down when I was doing this is talk to them, not at them, right? It's hard for me to explain that, I guess, but you want to talk to them in a welcoming way and not in a, I guess, a threatening way, or you must do this, or, Java sucks. Oh, wait, I say that. So, you need to learn how to talk well to your audience. And be friendly and show the willingness to help. I think most people, especially my followers in India, know that, I am always willing to help them. I hang around in the halls. I hang around after the session. I hang around as much as I can to help people. That's why I'm there at the conference, right? I go to conferences to help people to learn to be better software developers. That's why I'm there. So the whole time I'm there, that's my job, is to help you guys and listen to you. And one thing I do that I'm really, thankful that I'm a Microsoft MVP is, and this happened yesterday in my talk at NDC, where someone came to me with a code problem and said, Dave, I can't figure this out. Here's an example. It breaks, .NET is breaking on this. Can you help me? I test it. I see it breaking and I go, you know what? I'm going to talk to the .NET runtime team on Monday and get them working on this. And so that's one thing I do at conferences is I write these things down and I bring them to the Microsoft teams up in Seattle. So just some of the things I've learned is I look at my audience a lot, and I'm trying to look at this tiny little camera, which is really weird for me to do because I'm an in-person speaker. I'm not a remote speaker like this. But if you've ever seen me at a session, I am constantly looking at the audience, right? I try to look at everybody depending on the size of the room. At CSharpCorner conference, it's really hard for me to do that because the room is so freaking huge, but other conferences, like I usually can do that. And, not only is this important to show that you're engaged with the audience, right? But it shows how they're engaging with you. And by the looks in their eyes or facial expressions, I quickly change my talk, or maybe talk more about one thing. Or if I know I sense the audience is more beginner, then I explain things a little better. But I can only know this by looking at them. And anyway, so looking at your audience the whole time is super important. And like Magnus said, don't look at the slides, right? Look at your audience. Unlike Magnus, I walk around the entire time, right? I clocked it once, and I walk about 3 miles in 1 hour when I'm in a live session. And this is great exercise, I guess. Help me lose 100 pounds. But, I do this for a bunch of reasons. But the main, and I could talk about those, but I'm going to talk about the main one. So I actually learned this a long time ago when I went to a Microsoft conference and I saw a speaker do this. The speaker never stood at the computer. He never stood at the podium. He walked around the audience the entire time. And I thought that was the coolest thing because it kept me engaged with him. And so I do that now, right? I never stand at the computer. I never stand at the podium. I walk around the entire time. I walk up and down the audience. I walk around. I don't go behind the audience, but I walk around the entire time because I've found that this forces them to pay attention to me, right? And not use their cell phone, right? As soon as someone whips out their cell phone, the talk is over and you've lost them. So to me, walking around helps me keep them engaged. Oh, I guess I duplicated that. And I smile a lot. If you guys have seen me, I smile the entire time, pretty much. Not only because I'm having a good time, but I want the audience, to know that and feel good about, what I'm talking about. So I smile a lot, and I have some proof coming up of that. For those of you who haven't seen me, I play rock videos before my session. I started this a long time ago. And, I started doing this for the audience because I wanted to get the audience into a different mode before they saw my session. And because, you know, when people are sitting on their butts all day, it's hard to get them engaged. And so I started showing these rock videos before my session. And but I quickly found out that it was a way to get me in a different mood and get me excited, because when I see these videos, these are all my favorite groups like Rush. I rock out and start getting happy, and you know, and it starts getting me worked up. I have a routine before I talk, and this is part of my routine. I also, most conferences you go to, you don't get introduced. You just start your talk. I started these funny videos to introduce myself. And again, it's a way to engage the audience, get them laughing a little bit with these funny things that I come up with. And so we're all kind of on the same page when I start talking, especially with my rock and roll outfit and all that kind of stuff that you guys have seen in India. I throw guitar picks out at the audience. Again, this is a way not only to brand myself, but this is a way to make the audience pay attention, because, you know, I actually found this out with my students at a university. If I threaten to throw things at them, they're going to pay attention. And so I do that. So all of you out there I've hit in the head with something, I apologize now publicly on YouTube. I try to keep things light. I tell jokes, a few, not too many. Don't tell too many jokes. But, you know, I found getting geeks to laugh is really hard. And but I try to do that. And again, it's to keep them engaged. Another thing I do to make it fun and keep them engaged is I bring swag to give away. I always have software, posters, mouse pads, guitar picks, stickers, magnets. All these things is mostly branding. But again, to keep the audience engaged and have them excited about the talk. So here's some proof of fun. All these pictures are pretty recent, and now I think my PowerPoint's going to die. Come on. Yep, I think my PowerPoint's going to die. Well, I'll keep talking while it's dying. But anyway, I have some pictures up here about the fun I have at conferences, you know, to kind of show you proof that this works, at least for my branding, at least. Let me try to get this working again. Oh, there it goes. I don't know why PowerPoint likes to do autosaves when you're in presentation mode. So here's some proof of me speaking at different conferences around the world, Ukraine, India, America. And you can see in every one of these pretty much I'm smiling, or I look like I'm having fun. And the next deck is even better, the next slide at least. And you can see in all these I'm smiling, having fun, breaking guitars, engaging with my audience. In one picture there, you have the CSharpCorner team lifting me up in the air after I broke a guitar. You know, those of you who've come to India and watched me break guitar, I can't tell you just how much fun that is, because conferences won't let me do that here in America. So. So the next thing I want to talk about is branding a little bit. How much time do I have left? Oh, I didn't start it, so I don't know. About 10 minutes, it looks like. So here's some things to think about for branding. You know, speaking is one of the best ways to find a new job, right? I can trace almost every job I've had in the software world back to speaking somehow, either at the university, at conferences, at user groups, at local companies, wherever I've spoken at a high school before. You know, this is the best way to find a job, really, because, you know, the mere fact that you're up there speaking in front of people gives you credibility. And it really, really helps you find jobs. And people walk up to me, to find a job. I was at the CSharpCorner conference and someone walked up to me and goes, "Dave, we have to work together." I was in India. So it's a really great way to find a job. Promote your projects, GitHub, things like that, NuGet, whatever projects you're doing. It's a good way to promote things. Promote your books, of course. I use my talks to promote my books. If you're a Pluralsight author, it's a good way to push your Pluralsight. And like I said before, it's a great way to learn. Speaking is a fantastic way to learn. Those of you who have seen me speak before, my slide decks are pretty crazy and crashes PowerPoint often. But again, I do that not only to create my brand, but to try to get, people, excited about what I'm talking about. And, sometimes I go a little overboard with my animations because I'm bored and I'm playing around with After Effects or something. But, I try to make interesting slides. And, there's been many times when, people have come up to me at conferences going, "What software are you using for your slides?" And I go, "PowerPoint." And they go, "That's not PowerPoint." And I go, "It is." So it's a great way to, again, brand, keep people excited. If you look at like news, I watch the news most of the day, they have moving things, in the background and around the sides. But don't go too crazy. They shouldn't be too distracting. And I've done that a few times. And I said before, this is a great way to like push things like my books. So here's like what I show at the beginning of my talk yesterday at NDC, because it was about code performance. And it's a way for me to push my book, get some people to buy my books, which some people have since yesterday. And of course, you guys know in India that, all the profit from the print book of this goes to the Voice of Slum in India. So I usually spend like a minute or so talking about my visit to the Voice of Slum, because it was is a very moving experience. So here's my number one tip. I think I'm close to time, but I got a few more things to talk about. So here's my number one tip. And, one thing I do, I just thought about, one thing I do in all of my sessions is there's one thing in my slide deck that I want people to pay attention to, one slide. And because I want them to bring that home with them or back to work with them when they leave the conference. So, and on my 2-hour talks, I have two things, but in 1-hour talk, I have one thing. So here's my number one tip. And here's the tip that I've never shared publicly ever before. And let's see what people say when I'm a little bit afraid to share it because I'm worried about what people are going to say. So here it is. You can't teach anyone anything in an hour or less. Flat out. It's impossible. When I taught at a university, I had 4.5 hours. And yes, in 4.5 hours, I can teach somebody something. But in 1 hour, you can't. And now most conference sessions are shrinking, 45 minutes, 30 minutes, 20 minutes. I don't know how you do sessions that small. Some conferences have gone to 45 minutes. And if I know they're doing that, I don't submit my talks anymore. I can't do a 45-minute talk or a 30-minute talk, even though this is a 30-minute talk. But I can't do them. And so there's one thing you have to remember what your job is. And this is what I found out a long time ago, what my job is in 1 hour. And this is it. The only thing you can do is get them excited about what you're speaking about. That's it. That to me is your job, is to get them excited about, Azure functions or AWS lambdas or whatever the thing you're talking about. You want to excite them about that so they go and learn on their own, because they're not going to learn in an hour talk, especially at a conference when they've been sitting on their butts for 8 hours. It doesn't work. So you need to get them excited about what you're talking about. And I can't really stress that enough. And that's why, I do some of these goofy things and the throwing things and the rock and roll gear and things like that, because I want to get them excited about what I talk about. And in most cases, you can do that. And in most cases, I do that. And not every conference I'm successful. That's just the way it is. Every city, every conference is different. I love going to India, and to the CSharpCorner conference, because, the geeks there are so warm and welcoming, and even though they're a bit more shy than Americans, they do come up and talk to you and ask good questions, and that's my fun. If I could make a living doing just this, I would do it, but there's no money in this. So anyway, so get them excited. That's your number one thing. If you can do that in an hour, then you have succeeded, right? And as soon as I learned this, it just relieved a lot of stress on me, and allowed me to basically, over a number of years, create the brand that I am now. And .NET Dave and the rock and roll gear and all that branding stuff, that's .NET Dave. But, this is what helped me create all that. So, encore. So, remember to always bring the passion and fun, right? I'm very passionate in my talks, and I try to be fun, and in most cases, it really does work for me. And, the last thing I want to leave you with is, what? If this shy introvert geek can learn how to speak, so can you, right? I had to force myself to speak because I did not want to do it. I hated it more than anything when I started learning how to speak. And so, if I can do it, then anybody can do it. So that's what I'm going to leave you with. And I'm really glad you all attended this. I hope you have some good questions. I was talking the whole time. I wasn't able to read the chat, but thanks a lot for attending. And, I hope to see you in India next year. Thanks.
That was great, David. Definitely learn a lot. Tip is definitely good that, in 1 hour, it's really hard to teach anything. It's all about getting them excited so they can go home and go back and learn about it, right?
Right.
And then I definitely agree. The most, in the beginning of my years, most of the projects I got, the clients I got, is through speaking. I would be speaking, and then, some guy will come stop by and say, hey, I need help. My company needs help. Can you come help me? So my old projects, we got through writing articles and speaking.
Yeah.
Well, good points.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I hope,
Naveen,
hope everybody liked it. And there was something I was going to say, but now I forgot.
Yeah, it was surely fantastic session. So bringing fun while you speak, I believe that is why, to keep the talk, even the serious talk, I have seen the speakers while in TEDx or other sessions, they are speaking on very serious topic, but they keep the overall discussion so light that the audience gets the gist of it, and they get the pun, they understand the pun, and they actually gets connected to the speaker. So I believe once you have the audience smiling or laughing with you, you have the audience in your grab, and then you can, it is your show, you can play the way you want to. So that is, I feel that is great to start engaging with the audience. And not to say that people think that they have to learn guitar after obviously seeing David's in our conferences, that they have to learn guitar before starting to speak. So then only guitar will speak. So there is only one David.
Well,
Yeah.
I did that because, like I said in my talk is, about 5-6 years ago, I wanted to start bringing in some of my hobbies or what I'm really passionate about, besides software engineering, and that's kind of where the videos and the guitar came in and all that kind of stuff. Actually, the guitar wasn't even my idea. It was somebody in one of my sessions. And they said, "Hey, Dave, why don't you play guitar before your session?" I go, "Huh, that's a good idea."
Yes.
All right, guys, that's great. We gotta let's start the panel. We'll get other speakers in the panel.
Correct.
And then we start some questions. So,
whoa.
No. Magnus, do your tricks.
So here we go.
Jazz hands.
Awesome.
That's looking great.
This looks good.
Wow.
I think this looks like conference.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey.
I believe we had very insightful sessions. We learned a lot about public speaking. We learned about the common mistakes we do while we speak with our virtual teams, while we make videos, or at least the audio tips while we create. So I believe we had very good insight. What software tools do we need to use? And then when we speak in person, how to get mentally prepared for that session, how to get, hang around it. And then if you are on stage, oh, wow, that was the last one standing. Then, and once when you are on stage, then what exactly is required to get engaged with the audience? And after the session is over, how you improve yourself? Are you open to receive feedback? If yes, then only, as I mentioned the quote, feedback is the breakfast of champions. So I believe we should live on the feedback as a speaker, as a techie, as a professional learning around. So let's start with our panel. So first. So it's about everyone cannot speak. Obviously, everyone learn to speak from childhood. They communicate with their peers, their parents, with their friends. But obviously, most of the people, they don't get opportunity to speak in public, not in school, not in college, at least. And when they get introduced to any opportunity in the office space, they often get shy. So most of the people you will see, they keep one hand in pocket, or they are leaning on a wall or leaning on the whiteboard. So how to keep that I'll say nervousness out of the body? Although you gave the tips, but this is a typical question, because I was like that a few years back, and maybe I do it right now unconsciously. It is inbuilt in my system. So how to keep it out?
You don't. It always shows through. No.
Practice.
So I'm going to jump in real quick because I said I was the nervous speaker in my session, and I do. I get nervous every single time. Like my palms are sweaty right now. It happens. So before every session, everybody says, stop by the bathroom, make sure, you're ready to go. When I stop by the bathroom, I give myself a pep talk and say, they're just people. You're just having a conversation.
Who's awesome?
A conversation, and I do that, and then I do my, my Superman thing, as you mentioned. but you can never shake it all off.
Mm-mm.
It's going to happen. Every single one of us who have gotten up on stage have been nervous, and we are nervous throughout the whole thing. But in the middle of it, at some point in time, your body just calms down and starts rolling with it. So I can't give you advice on how to get it to stop, because it really doesn't stop. All you got to try to do is combat it, just that little bit that makes it you able to pull it off.
Yeah, to add to what Monica said, I think if you're not nervous, you're probably not in it for the right reasons. I'm nervous every single time I go up there because I want to do a good job, and I want to get people excited, like David said. I want to get people to understand and be passionate. If I'm just going up there willy-nilly and not caring or not sweating like I am now too, just not caring.
So it looks artificial if you are not nervous and you are playing robotic. So it's a very natural habit. So it's for our listeners that being nervous is very natural, but you have to conquer it. You have to put a command, like the tips which Magnus gave, that how you infuse the enthusiasm, how do you infuse the power. You have to feel the power from inside. So Magnus, you told us about the power pose, you told us about the other pose, but what else, how to prepare mentally? For example, if I am given a task of speaking on certain topic, how do you prepare the content? You told us how to prepare the presentation, but how can you prepare the content? You Google it around, although even though you are very good at it, but still you need to have a presentable content in the slide deck. So how do you do that?
Well, apparently you can't teach anyone anything in an hour. That's what I've heard. And that's pretty accurate. I just want to say first that drawing attention to yourself as a living organism is a risk-taking behavior. Mm-hmm. That's why we are nervous when we draw attention to ourselves. It takes time, years of practice, seriously, but it does fade. It goes away over time. And I don't know. Okay, so some of you guys feel this is a tense moment in you're here, you're presenting and all that. I'm calm as a cucumber. I'm fine. And it's taken years, many years of deliberate practice to start to move that away from myself. But I'm not answering your question. So the content, I do research, but I think that you should speak about things that you are passionate about. So I often find myself talking about some bloody topic way out there on the bleeding edge. Like no one is touching that right now in the industry, because I'm an MVP and it's kind of in our nature to be inquisitive and be on the edge and seek the latest things. And, eventually we're like, finally, I can talk about that thing. I've been under NDA for 6 months. I've not been able to talk about it. And then you go out all excited and you're talking about this topic. Finally, it's public. And nobody's like, you get an audience of 5 because your topic is not like next version of C# or something, where like audience of hundreds. So you should talk about the things that you are passionate about, even though maybe you won't always get that huge audience. I applaud people that do like, whoa, the next version of ASP.NET or something. It's like they're rock stars and they get this massive audience. But I think my number one tip is talk about what makes you happy.
Correct. So, and Joseph, you said feedback. So is it good to have, sort of particular forms distributed among the audience? Obviously, it depends on the type of coaching or mentoring class you are. So, or how do you receive feedback and how do you learn from it? How do you develop yourself more for the next sessions? Obviously, there would be mistakes, but there would be new mistakes. You would not be repeating them, most of it. So how do you prepare yourself for the feedback?
Well, being married for 20 some odd years has exposed me to a lot of feedback. I'm wrong more often than I'm right. But I listen to feedback all the time. When I'm talking at a conference, I stay near the stage. People always come, they always line up, they're always ready to talk. Some conferences use forms, some use, glowing balls that they put in a bucket. It just really depends. I listen to everything. When I get the session evals, if a conference hands them out afterwards, I go through them. But like I mentioned in my talk, the biggest thing is listening to what people have to say there. If there's someone in the audience that I know, like if Magnus or David or Alan or Monica were in my talk, I'd hit them up afterwards. I would say after their talk is done and say, hey, what do you got for me? What did I do? What did you like? What did you dislike? And then I try to implement that, as I mentioned before, into the notes of things I have for that talk. And if it's just general things like Magnus mentioned at one point, shirts, it's not something I can correct right there, but it's something, to note for next time.
Correct. So, and David, the question to you, because you said you were a very shy guy. So often people, like in my earlier days, I used to just, stand still. It's a total blackout for me. It would happen that I would completely thing got erased from my mind, what I was speaking, or what exactly where I'm standing, what we were discussing. So have you ever encountered these blackouts, maybe in early days, or with someone you might have known that? How do you tackle those blackouts?
Well, I still have blackouts, so.
Last night.
Well, I think if you want to talk about like the beginning when you're speaking and terrified and afraid that, you might screw up or something, in the beginning, I made a lot of notes, and, I would write them usually in PowerPoint in the notes, and then I would print them out and have them next to the computer for me, just in case I forgot something I need to refer back, right? But now
I remember you print the cards, the presentation cards.
That's what I'm getting right now. So
yes.
So because I'm using them to lift up my camera.
Okay.
But now, so there was a while that I didn't really need to use notes anymore, but now I'm old.
Okay.
So now I have these cards that I have in my hand just in case, I have a blackout, I forget something, and I can, okay, that's what I was supposed to do, right? And if you can see here, I even have when I'm supposed to click something, right?
Yes.
I have it's like a script.
Okay.
Right? And
that's why they are called handouts.
Yeah.
Because they are supposed to be in hands always. Okay.
So, the one thing though that I've found is that, this is just a backup, right? Most of the time when I speak, I don't even look at these, right? I only look at them when I have a blackout. Okay. And I go, oh yeah, I'm supposed to click that. And
yes.
So.
And to Ellen about the virtual meeting, because now due to pandemic, sorry, not epidemic now. So we are confined to homes. Obviously, we're taking calls for office, for professional space from the comfort zone of the home. So you have shared a lot, but a few of guys who provide their video blogs to others or create content, they are asked, like most of the elements like you shared in your presentation, in how many cost or at what cost they can create this studio environment at their home.
Okay, really quickly, because I'm going to have to go after this question.
Sure.
But just to let everyone know, right? First of all, we were talking in the background there, and we're going to do a video that goes into detail of all this stuff to help everybody out. Okay. Secondly, to answer the quick question, I will show you how to get set up for less than $50, and it'll be very professional sounding and very professional looking, and we'll do a lot of DIY and make and do. On the other scale, I'm like a regular tech guy, and I play some music as well, like Dave. And I have a thing called Gas. And people who are into music will know what GAS is. It stands for.
I live in Arizona. We have gas all the time. Lots of Mexican food. It's really bad.
This GAS is Gear Acquisition Syndrome. So with Gear Acquisition Syndrome, you know, you've got to have the bigger and better thing all the time. So where I may have started off with some stuff that cost me nothing or $50, you can spend thousands. You can spend thousands. I've got 5 different pairs of headphones sitting on my desk right now just because I can, right? And just because they do different things. For example, these ones here that I have, right? They're what's called a closed back headphone. You can see it there. They have a closed back, right? And I use those for very careful editing so nothing can come in my ear. Whereas the ones I'm wearing now have a mesh on them, and they're an open back headphone. Okay, so they allow more sound out, so I hear more of the environment around me. And depending on what I'm doing, I'll wear different headphones. So you can go and spend as much money as you want, or you can get away for very small money, and you can produce some very, very high quality stuff, and it does not have to cost you too much at all. So I will show you. We will make a video on behalf of the community, and I'll show you how to get away for $50 and to do an awesome show with that.
That's good. That's good. Yeah.
Okay, I've got to go. It's been fantastic to be able to share with you guys.
Thank you.
And I'll talk to you all soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, Alan.
Bye, Alan.
Bye. So, question for you, Monica, because you have presented, you said you have been nervous, but still you are delivering and doing excellent in your line of expertise. So there are people like, they are asked, and it happens with almost every techie. If I am a C# expert, people would ask me some question or query related to .NET. They might be checking my expertise or my experience, or they might be a genuine problem, but they do not distinguish that this speaker. So how to set up the scope of your knowledge versus the scope of the presentation or the session, so that people do not ask idiotic questions.
Oh, they're going to ask idiotic questions. We're just going to put that right out. It's going to happen every time. Setting the scope of your knowledge, that's kind of hard. When you're setting your agenda and you're kind of telling them in the beginning what you plan to talk about, that's setting the stage of the scope of what you expect their questions to be like and what you're expecting to cover. There are going to be some people, so I'm an MVP, so that automatically makes people think, and I'm a consultant, that they're going to ask questions that are way out of scope or very complicated that you can't even answer without more information from them, or et cetera. You have to take those kind of questions offline. Let them know, hey, that is a fantastic question. Let me get back to you on that. Or, you know what? I don't know that answer. It's always okay not to have the right answer. I mean, not to have an answer. You try to answer correctly, but not to have an answer. It's okay to say, you know what? I don't know that. Or, that's kind of out of the scope of what we're talking about with this talk. Let's take that offline, and you can catch me in the hall or catch me at lunch, or after this, I would love to talk to you about it, or I'd love to answer that more in depth. You actually have to come up with your own way on how to navigate those things. But being able to say, that's not within the scope of this conversation, or I don't know, let me get back to you. Or if you have another MVP or expert in the field or a coworker in your audience, shoot the question to them. Hey, John, or Denny, do you happen to know that answer? Let me kick it to you real quick, and then we'll come back to me. There's very easy ways to handle it, but it is a skill, and you'll fumble through it. But you'll get your rhythm. It's okay to say you don't know that or take it offline.
Correct.
Hey, so this question is from Rohit Gupta for Magnus. How should be the first slide, introduction slide should be, and how much stuff you should put in that slide when you introduce yourself and you are a new speaker? Nobody knows you.
I'm a little allergic to slides, and I'm sorry that I'm saying that in this context, that there's so much on them. Like there's 1,000 logos and 100 titles. I'm sorry, but I'm a little allergic to that. I have become more and more minimalistic because there's power in that as well. There's power in that. There's power in getting on stage and simply saying, "Hello, I'm Magnus," without any further ado, as in you expect them to know who you are. There's a lot of power in that. Rather than giving your life full resume on the first slide with all the things, like here's, oh, by the way, yeah, after 5 years, then I moved to that other company, and it's like people are, what are you talking about? There's power in being you, and saying being me is I'm the right person to be here. I don't have to give you my lifelong resume. So less is more.
Okay.
So less
Yeah.
is more, guys.
Less
Good
is
point.
more. Yes. Less is new more.
You should know who I am without being cocky, right?
Okay, so I would argue, what if you're a brand new speaker and people don't know who you are? You need to develop a presence, create a brand,
Exactly.
or show them you have credentials that you know what you're talking about.
So
there's a schedule for the conference and all that. You can have all that info there.
So I'm with Magnus on that, right? So speaking, going to, like, if I'm at a conference, there's like 20 speakers speaking. If I'm going to a session, I probably know about that speaker. Most of the cases, maybe 10% people don't know about it, right? And you can have that, hey, this is my Twitter, this is my contact info. That's about it. But most people already know that. And then by telling them you are who you are, basically you're kind of diluting your brand. And there's always a little bit keeping some things hidden is always like people want more. But if you're already telling everything, like, there's maybe 20% of people will listen, but 80 will like, oh, I already knew that. So they're kind of not paying attention anymore.
This got me thinking. Now that we're here, that we're talking about this curveball, use this to your advantage. Maybe say, yeah, maybe not say but say, so you know that I work with Azure technology now, but did you know that I used to work for Google? I don't know. You can make yourself more interesting with something that isn't on your full-blown resume. I don't know. There's an opportunity there, maybe.
Yeah, it's everybody's different. Whatever makes you feel good to get going, right? That's how it is, I think. I never said too much about myself. That's just me. But then again, I'm not a speaker, big speaker. All right, next question. Let's take next question. You have Naveen, next question.
I see again. So there are repeated questions. Again, people are asking how to stop hecklers. I believe we have already discussed that, guys. If you did not, if you have missed, you can always see the recording of this video. We discussed that, and Monica responded to that. And about the fun part. So David, it's like not every topic, not every session, because there are some cultural values as well. For example, if you give your session to India, and not to offend to anyone, we are more religious about the speakers, their knowledge, because it's a tech hive of the world. So people just go for to the point discussions and learning, and most of them get offended. Oh no, he was just cracking jokes, he did not share. But you also said that no one can teach you in 1 hour. So is it good that in subtle way we can pass on this message while we deliver our session, maybe half an hour session, 1 hour session, that you cannot become expert of this technology out of this session, but it is just a generic know-how, and I'm here to interact with you, or we can establish a dialogue, something like that?
Right, that was a long question. I think there's like 5 questions in there.
Yes,
Easily.
That's my art.
So has someone said something about something I've said on stage in India?
Yeah, so for example, first thing about the culture, like every country, every space has a different belief pattern. So like US, UK, if you go to conferences, you cannot just hear only the technical thing. You ought to You expect actually the speaker to interact with you, to, he must crack jokes and all. But back in I have felt that people are more religiously looking at the speaker to deliver more in the lesser time, rather than cracking jokes or asking whereabouts or where do you live, something like that. So how do you gauge your audience before making it a fun loaded session?
Right. That's a really hard answer because unfortunately, it's hard to do until you're there, and when I go to different countries, I do purposely maybe tone some things down, right? I have some rules, like I don't talk about politics. I don't talk about, I don't make jokes about politics. I don't make joke about, I don't talk about religion, those kind of things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But as far as the technical expertise, that's really hard, and unfortunately, you don't know until you're there, and
Okay.
and that's one of the things I said in my talk is I look at the audience, right, and I can gauge sometimes their experience or lack thereof, right, and then I quickly change how I'm talking based on what I'm seeing in their faces or eyes, or maybe I've talked to them before the session, things like that. Now, at some conferences, if I get to talk to like the organizer or the speaker coordinator, then I will ask them, so, what's the major industry around here? What would you say is the average, skill level of software engineers at this conference? Things like that. Unfortunately, that usually doesn't happen until you're there, and you have to quickly change your slides or, think a lot about how you're going to talk differently. But that's tough, and so, that's one thing. But that's one thing I really pay attention to, because every city, every country is different, right?
Exactly.
And so when I go to those places at least once, then I know, right? And when I go back there maybe someday, then I already know their skill level and I can change my slide, accordingly. Yeah.
So the next question is for Joe from Sundaram. Yeah. Is public speaking is more important than writing articles?
I wouldn't say any vehicle to deliver content is more important than another. Every person learns differently. Okay. Some people learn by listening like this. Some people learn by reading. Some people learn by doing. For me, I actually look at a blog post or hear something that sparked my interest from an event like this. And then I'll go through with some examples and try it out and learn. Others like to sit in conferences, and that's where they get it. Some people just like reading books and articles. It varies all over. So I think the key is find what you're good at and work on that. If you're a good writer, focus on the writing. My writing skills are terrible. I blog a lot, but it doesn't mean that I'm good at it. It's just each person learns and behaves differently.
Great. So next question. I know, Monica, you talked about having a moderator and mentor while you're speaking. Question is from Suraj. How do you choose a good moderator or mentor?
It's not about choice sometimes. It's whoever's running the conference becomes the moderator. Or if you're doing your own, having a friend or a colleague, someone that you know as your moderator. The important part is that when you're speaking, you can't stare at the chat. So you need to have somebody watching the chat. You want to make sure you're getting the audience engagement through chat, and you want their questions answered so they're getting value from it. So having another set of eyes working with you on your live presentations like this, or when you're doing a conference, whether we have something like this live or live streamed or elsewhere, having somebody that can read through those comments and can stop and get that engagement is important. Picking who that is, it's whoever's available, right? There's no, this person is the best moderator. They must moderate me every time. And every time I go speak, I bring them with me. That's not exactly how that works. So that's basically it.
Great. Yeah. So next question is from Prashant for Magnus. So how do you engage people in a new topic which they are not aware of? So for example, this question is right there. So you have a new topic, you want to really talk about it because you are passionate about it, but people are not, users are not, their audience are not.
So there is maybe that question is for Dave actually, but
Yeah, you can switch. Yeah, if anybody else wants to take the question.
yeah. We can both answer it. I think that first of all, you should of course do like broad strokes and then analogies. Talk about something which is like what they are, what the technology is like. And storytelling comes really well in hand here. You can probably often find a story, something similar to what you're talking about. That's actually like riding a horse, or I don't know what that's going to be, right? That you cannot maybe go in depth to your nerdy, passionate stuff because it's gonna not resonate with people if they've never heard about the technology before. So at that point, you have to like bring it up to a less technical, more high overview kind of level. And there's some sound going on there now.
It's fixed with my phone, I think.
That's okay. And so that's probably what you need to do. Storytelling. Tell a story about something which you can draw like a parallel to the thing. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, I think that's a really a great idea. And, the one thing I'd like to add is, in all of my sessions, I show real world things, right? I never show fake things. I never show a calculator or, things like that. I show real world things. And that's why, the beginning of each one of my sessions, and I said this in the chat earlier, is most speakers I see forget the why, right? Why are you here? Why are you here to learn this? Why am I here to teach you this, right? And what I always do is I always try to relate it back to something I've done, right? Because, I want to show them a real world way that I used Azure Kubernetes, it's early here, to solve a problem, right? So tell the problem and then show how you solved it with that technology, right? And if you have to do a little bit of overview of Kubernetes, before, that's fine, but then directly go into how you used it at your work or your contract or whatever, right? Because I think those are really good takeaways that you go, oh yeah, I could do that at my job, right? And but I think a lot of talks miss that. It's just, here's the technology, here's how it works, blah blah blah, and no real world experience.
Yeah. And there are some common bloopers when we present. For example, as a programmer, I have seen lots of our fellow programmers when they compile a code, they want to show how to write the code or some snippet out of it, and internet just doesn't work.
So here's one of my tips that I try to tell beginner speakers, or maybe all speakers: never rely on the internet ever. Right? You cannot guarantee it works. I've seen keynotes completely fail because of the internet, right? I've seen many talks, and as soon as that happens, your audience is gone, right?
Yes,
and so that's why if I do like a code demo or something like that, I pre-record it, right? And if you want to do it live, then fine, but have that as a backup. Right? Because you cannot rely on the internet. You cannot rely that Visual Studio is going to work correctly. You cannot, as you saw today, my PowerPoint died, so especially the internet, you can't rely. Don't ever rely on the internet.
So actually,
to add that, just to Scott Henselman's one famous session when I think they lost internet, and he just came up with several good jokes, and he was really talking about how it failed and didn't work. Some demos doesn't work, but it just, I guess we have to be ready in different ways.
Yes. Well, that's, and that's why, I don't think most people know this, but I'll tell the world, You know, when you watch a build conference and stuff like that, and you watch a demo at build, there's somebody behind the curtain mimicking what that person is doing, because if their computer fails, they can immediately switch over to the guy that's mimicking what that person is doing, right? And so that's why Microsoft demos usually don't fail.
Yeah.
Right.
So
but we don't have that luxury, right?
Yeah. So, lady and gents, we are running out of time. I want to respect everybody's time. So I really appreciate you having here in your busy schedule and time in this whole, pandemic. Everybody, thank you so much on behalf of community and our team. And also thank you so much for, helping everybody, sharing your knowledge. Appreciate it, and stay safe, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Have a good day.
Have a good day. Bye-bye. Good evening. Good night.
So we out? Guess so.